Good afternoon. My name is Jason Chavez, and I'm the chair of the Committee of the Whole. I'm going to call to order a regular committee meeting for Tuesday, February 25th. Before we begin the meeting, I want to offer a friendly reminder to all members, staff, and the public that these meetings are broadcast live to enable greater public participation. These broadcasts include real-time captioning as a further method to increase the accessibility of our proceedings to the community. Therefore, all speakers need to be mindful of the rate of their speech so that our captioners can fully capture and transcribe all comments for the broadcast. We ask all speakers to moderate the speed and clarity of their comments. At this time, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll to verify the presence of a quorum.
Councilmember Payne.
Present.
Wansley.
Present.
Rainville.
Present.
Vita.
Present.
Ellison is absent. Osmond.
Present.
Cashman is absent. Jenkins, absent. Got that. Thank you. Chugtai.
Present.
Koski.
Present.
Palmisano.
Present.
Vice Chair Chowdhury.
Present.
And Chair Chavez.
Present.
There are 11 members present.
Let the record reflect that we have a quorum. First, we will take up our consent items. The first item is passage of a resolution establishing a safe and thriving community work group. The second item is receiving and filing the 2024 annual report of the Minneapolis Ethical Practices Board. Item number 3 is passage of a resolution accepting a gift for local progress for Council President Payne to attend the Local Progress Board retreat. And lastly, item number 4 is authorizing a joint powers agreement with Hennepin County to administer winter warming centers for a period of 5 years. Colleagues, are there any questions or comments? Councilmember Rainville.
Thank you. I'm wondering if any one of my colleagues could help me understand how the appointment process will go for the safe and thriving communities.
Thank you, Councilmember Rainville. I'll pass it on to Councilmember Wansley.
Yes, thank you, Chair Chavez. So our appointment process for the Safe and Thriving Communities Work Group will follow the same process as our ABCs right now. So basically, council will be able to do appointment, and then the mayor also will be able to do appointment. And that section is spelled out specifically in the resolution of section 2.c, where again, council nominations equals to 13. The mayor will have 2 seats, and then also 6 seats by specific professionals will be selected by the Office of Community Safety.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And is that all Councilmember Rainville? Cool. Councilmember Wansley, you're still on cue.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. Just wanted to also offer some comments on item number 1, which will allow the city to establish a community advisory board pertaining to the Safe and Thriving Communities report and plan. So actually, the Safe and Thriving Communities report and plan states within the first 12 months that the city should have proceeded with establishing a community advisory body. And this is something that my own constituents in Ward 2 also shared their interest and wanted to see happen at a community safety meeting that I hosted at Matthews Park last summer. Residents in Seward, who will be the neighbors of the new 3rd Precinct / South Minneapolis Community Safety Center, expressed that they do want a venue for community oversight of the city's new public safety buildings, as well as their programs. And persistent community engagement and oversight has helped to hold city leadership and the administration accountable to making good on their commitments around advancing equitable and comprehensive public safety system that serves all of our residents and keep all of our residents safe. And also, I know my constituents have made it very clear they also want to make sure that in participating in processes like this, they also want to be part of making sure that the city does not revert back to a status quo of policing that did not keep all of our residents safe. So I think this request for community oversight just displays that our residents do have good instincts and want to be part of this great work that we're leading around public safety, and it's quite necessary. Also, I will name is very much necessary in pertaining to the location of the Community Safety Center, where even just in the last few weeks, we had some troubling developments around learning about a very concerning partnership with a QAnon adjacent organization that was under federal investigation that was being invited to come into the South Minneapolis Community Safety Center. And my residents wanted to make it clear, like, this is not a place in which we are going to be working with any predatory groups, and this gives us a new opportunity to establish a different precedent for our city. And this gives us that opportunity for our residents to make sure that we're holding firm to that promise. In addition to the accountability and oversight, this advisory body will also make sure that the city leadership is making due and making progress on essentially spending and allocating that $4 million, which is around $3 million now, of public safety aid that we relegated to the Community Safety Center for pilots, making sure that that money actually is being spent in a thoughtful way that does advance new safety programs that will keep residents safe across the 3rd Precinct. And residents will have a role through this advisory board in helping shape what those pilots could look like. Additionally, residents who are participating in this board will also have the ability to support the development and shaping of future community safety centers. Right now, our capital improvement plan has slated that the 4th Precinct / Community Safety Center will be up next after the completion of the South Minneapolis Community Safety Center. So this gives residents the opportunity to be part of that pivotal conversation and development. Additional questions about the makeup of the new proposed work group is, of course, included in the RCA. And as I've shared a little bit earlier, it aligns with the council's adopted standard framework for advisory bodies. Also, all nominations are subjected to approval by the council and the mayor. And the work group will sunset when the implementation of the Safe and Thriving Communities report and plan is completed, which is right now estimated to take about 10 years. So with that, I'll see if my co-authors, Councilmember Chavez and Chowdhury, will have anything else to add and stand for any other questions.
Thank you. I just want to acknowledge that Councilmember Ellison and Councilmember Cashman are present, so we can write them down. Next up, we have Councilmember Osman and then Vice Chair Chowdhury.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. I have just a comment and also a question. Item 4, emergency warming shelters, if staff is here. My comment is 4.2. This is action that council has taken, especially Councilmember Chowdhury leadership. She will be speaking on that to just show that, our community is suffering, especially unhoused folks that are out there. So now within our council leadership, we try to find solutions, and one of the solutions is to authorize $100,000 to this Minnesota Indian Women's Resource Center, where they open their doors for folks that were staying in the cold winter to come in. And just to be generous, they did that. We had to step in, and the county matched that. Councilmember Chowdhury will talk about that. I just want to say that this is really good way of working with the community and caring about the community, especially folks that are suffering the most. We are trusted with this resident taxes, and this is one of the good use of those things, that if we cannot take care of our most needy community, that is just really something I want to praise all my colleagues for stepping in and voting for allocating this $100,000, and while county is matching. Also, my question is item 4.1. I see here that there's joint agreement with annual award of $250,000 on grant funding. I wanted to see if there's a staff here who can answer some questions about warm shelters and what does that look like in our city.
If we have staff that can speak to item number 4.1, that would be very helpful. Thanks for being here.
Hello, Chair Chavez, Council. Councilmember Osmond. So I'm Josie Shardlow, Director of Operations Engagement with Regulatory Services. And this is authorizing Regulatory Services to enter into a JPA, Joint Powers Agreement, with the county for $250,000 per year for the next 5 years. So this was already budgeted, so we had a similar contract with them before, and so this is basically continuing it, given that this got into this budget as well. In terms of the, so I don't know, is the question about more specifics?
My question is that, the warm shelters is very important, especially living in Minneapolis or Minnesota. How many warm shelters are out there in the county right now, and what is the operation? Is it a day warm shelters? Is it night warm shelters? What is the operation status right now with the county? That how many warm shelters out there and the time and dates?
Okay. Thanks for that. So, yeah, I would have to get back to you with all the specifics on number of beds and all of that. I did see a presentation from David Hewitt from Hennepin County last week to the Housing Advisory Committee, where they had a lot of those kind of stats. So I could probably share that with you as well, with the council. But, yeah.
Apologies. Yeah, I missed that meeting. I was traveling. Well, just last comment is that, thank God the temperature is getting warm here, but a few months ago we had a frigid weather, and this warm shelters is necessary for our residents in Minneapolis, and so I will pass it to Councilmember Chowdhury.
Thank you, Councilmember Osmond and staff. I guess for administrative follow-up, the question would be how many warming shelters are there in Minneapolis and in the county? I assume that's your question. And then the hours of operation, and that's the administrative follow-up that we would like to get. Okay. Thank you. The next person is Vice Chair Chowdhury and then Councilmember Cashman.
Thank you so much, Chair Chavez. I'll first just speak to the warming shelter item number 4, just for transparency to the body and the public. We passed the action to forward $100,000 from contingency to MIWRC for their pop-up warming shelter. They have since, with the funding that they've received from the county, been able to sustain their work in this last cold snap that took place and pop up their warming shelter. And I just want to give my gratitude to DCCO Jelly and Director Velasquez. They went and did a walkthrough of the MIWRC warming shelter. They met with Ruth Buffalo. They got to see the incredible work that's been happening there, and just in discussions with them and then also Hennepin County, they felt the easiest and best way for us to forward this allocation was by amending our joint powers agreement with Hennepin County so they could amend their contract that already exists with MIWRC. So exciting. Once we pass this in about 2 weeks and some change, hopefully that funding will be forwarded to MIWRC. And I just echo the comments that Councilmember Osmond made. This is a really, really great thing that I think we're stepping up as a city and partnering with the county. We're looking at the existing contracts that they have and just making this work. So there's really just a good impact in the real world for our communities. I did also want to speak to the Safe and Thriving Communities Work Group. Just appreciative to Councilmember Wansley and Councilmember Chavez for working on this. I'm excited to be an author. I think some things that really just stand out to me is having 6 seats requiring specific professional occupational qualifications, lived experience in violence prevention, being a justice impacted resident, or being someone that has experience with the criminal justice system. I think that's really, really key, especially if we're trying to sustain work for the next 10 years to improve our public safety system and really get at prevention, response, restoration. And I just also wanted to highlight in the reporting requirements, The work group will have a work plan, and they'll be giving an annual report, but they'll be submitting a biannual report. So after 6 months, they'll be sharing like the work that they've been doing, how far along that they've gone through their work plan, and that's a really good opportunity for council members, community members, the administration to kind of just check in and see how the work is going mid-year and have a conversation together so things are successful in the second half of the year. So very excited to support it, and I'm glad that we're taking it up today.
Next up, we have Councilmember Cashman.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. I had a couple questions about item number 2 on the consent agenda, the Ethical Practices Board report. So I think these questions are for Attorney Abelson, since I see that you, I think, drafted the report. I noticed that there were a few city departments with a large number of employees who are not up to date on their ethics training. What does accountability look like for the departments after you have this information, and what does it look like to get them into compliance?
Thank you, Chair Chavez and Councilmember Cashman. I guess first I will start with that the overall compliance this year was higher than last year's compliance. And then after that, it's technically up to the supervisors, but I continue to work with the department. So, for example, I did have a meeting with a department that had one of the highest levels of noncompliance. We discovered that one piece of it was simply that some data hadn't yet been entered by them for new employees. And then the other piece was, they're going to take a renewed push to get people in compliance. Also, there's been automated notices, which I think are new, that have been implemented, so people get automated notices. And then also, as we near the end of the year, I sent people individual emails who were out of compliance as well. So we're trying to get, that number as high as possible. And, and sometimes there's, little numbers for people out of compliance that are explainable, like, the employee who is retiring in a week or two, or data not quite matching up. But certainly with the departments that have large levels, I go back to them and work with the directors to try and get people in compliance.
All right, thank you for all the follow-up on that, and I'll look forward to seeing how the numbers change again with the annual report again next year to see how we're improving on all of that. And then my other question was about recent resignation from the Ethical Practices Board. I just really wanted to thank Michael Friedman for his service on the Ethical Practices Board, but I did see that he resigned, and I'm wondering what the plan is to replace and recruit for that position so we have, a fully seated Ethical Practices Board to do this work.
Chair Chavez and Councilmember Cashman, we've already replaced that person. I think it was before you a month or two ago. So the Ethical Practices Board is fully staffed.
Okay, great to hear. Thanks, that's all I have.
Thank you. Next up, we have Councilmember Palmisano.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to speak about item number 1, the Safe and Thriving Communities Work Group. I was of the understanding, and actually I think we heard this in one of Director Harrington's reports to committees, that the Office of Community Safety was creating their own Safe and Thriving Communities Work Group. In fact, I think I heard they were literally meeting and had a meeting just yesterday when I was trying to ask staff what the differences were between this proposal and what they have already going and underway. But they were literally sitting in that meeting when I was asking these questions. So I'm not sure how having another board or work group to manage and have folks sit on would be helpful. I do know, though, that money was appropriated to this through the budget process. I believe one or more of the unique elements of this is a fee per meeting, so more like the Planning Commission. But I haven't really been able to spend the time to read about why we would be restarting it, except to give the council the appointing authority, because I don't know anything about the people who currently sit on this Safe and Thriving Communities Work Group. At this point, I'm uncomfortable with what we're throwing away here. It's already underway, and it isn't using this money that was appropriated through the budget process, which might be a good thing. I am interested in having regular updates, as is mentioned in this RCA, about the work and tracking the progress of this over time. I'm not here to re-argue this part of the budget process. It had the votes to pass. But I don't think I'll be voting for this today because I don't want us going backward or being paralyzed by it. Thank you.
Councilmember Wansley.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. I just want to make sure for the public that you all aren't receiving misinformation based off of the prior comments. So there is currently no Safe and Thriving Communities Work Group, from my understanding, on the executive side. The Public Health and Safety Committee receives regular presentations from the Office of Community Safety specifically on this work. And in their last presentation last year, they noted in that presentation that developments around that had paused because they also knew, because Councilmember Chavez and myself had several meetings with them, that we were bringing this forward and the budget allocation was being moved to support the advancement of it. And also, once again, this resolution follows the standard ABCs process. So it's not also just council. The mayor also has the ability, or the administration has the ability, to participate in this process. So this is not duplication or duplicative. There is currently no work group on the executive side. Of course, the executive side has discretion to establish any operational work groups that they would like to proceed with. This is us establishing a legislative advisory board, which is within our jurisdiction. But from my understanding, again, there is not one established. This is not duplicating processes, so I just want to make sure that was clarified for you all.
Vice Chair Chowdhury.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Chavez. Yeah, I just wanted to comment and say, like, I think this work group is a really good opportunity for our executive side staff and the council and our community to just come together. For the Minneapolis Safe and Thriving Communities Report and Plan, one of the first action steps that it suggests is establish an executive leadership team and a community advisory board. And a big part of that is to ensure that there is a way to inform on executive and legislative policy changes, right? So there's the executive side, and then there's the legislative side, and that's the due role of the city council. And so having a board that we can appoint to and also work with the administration all together will, I think, be a really important piece of infrastructure to get this work going, as it's going to need to take a decade. And I also think in having a board and commission, both for the city council, who each of us are tasked with representing our communities, and the public, it provides some much necessary transparency to just kind of know that this exists and the work's moving and we can continue the conversation. Not to say that like that would be the intention the other way, but I do think oftentimes when one thing is siloed on the administrative side or just the legislative side and there's not a coming together, that tends to be the outcome. So I think this is pretty much in line with what we're tasked to do with the Minneapolis Safe and Thriving Communities Report.
Councilmember Palmisano.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did just notice that Commissioner Barnett is here, and instead of just talking about this like this, maybe he can change my mind by opining on the work. Is there a Safe and Thriving Communities work group that is meeting? If not, I can absolutely be mistaken. And could you see two boards to oversee the Safe and Thriving Communities implementation work together be valuable? Perhaps I'll be proven wrong. I hope I am. Thank you.
Excuse me. Good afternoon, Chair, and also Councilmember Palmisano. I don't know, Councilmember Wansley. I think months ago, Director Amanda Harrington and you met. Director Harrington had worked with a philanthropic organization to try to obtain funding for a work group. She had some ideas for a work group related to the Safe and Thriving Community Report. I think Councilmember Wansley knew about it and felt like this was the route that she wanted to go. Made it clear that we could have our own work group as well. We did not continue to pursue that work group. in light of this. I think it would be confusing to have two work groups. And so this is where we are.
I see. Thank you very much.
Yes.
I have myself last on queue, so there is no other work group. I think it's very important that we do establish this work group. I think it gives our residents the ability to weigh in publicly to help address public safety in our community. And I think, I want to make sure the public know, because there was comments made that it was just council. The mayor has appointments in this resolution as well. So it's council, mayor, and the community, and I think this is really important. So I just wanted to make sure I made those comments. All right, seeing no further comments, I'll move approval of item number 1, number 3, number 4, and ask the clerk to receive and file item number 2. If the clerk can please call the roll.
Councilmember Payne.
Aye.
Wansley.
Aye.
Rainville.
Aye.
Vita.
Aye.
Ellison.
Aye.
Osman.
Aye.
Cashman.
Aye.
Jenkins.
Aye.
Chuktag.
Aye.
Koski.
Aye.
Palmisano.
Aye.
Vice Chair Chowdhury.
Aye.
And Chair Chavez.
Aye.
There are 13 ayes.
And that item carries. Our first discussion item is passage of an ordinance amending provisions related to boulevards. I will first call on the authors of the ordinance. Not sure who's going to talk about that. Councilmember Palmisano.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, some of this might have changed, and I just acknowledge with respect that right before this meeting there were some changes, and it was because there was a community meeting about it last night that I was only able to send staff to. I had another engagement. But let me just tee it off, and then we can all kind of go from there. This is a discussion item about the Boulevard ordinance. I think we're all likely a little bit tired of talking about this, but let me provide a very brief overview for those listening or watching who may be unfamiliar or who have been tracking this with particular interests. The crux of this ordinance is to allow more use of our public right-of-way in a safe and a consistent manner. It's really as simple as that. The problem we're trying to solve with this ordinance is that how people want to use city boulevards is not currently allowed. It's not currently allowed at all. We want people to be able to do the things they've been telling us they would like to do, which is to grow food, to have raised planting beds, to beautify their boulevard, to be good stewards for water quality and our pollinator population. We also need to make sure it's done in a way that protects things like sight lines, pedestrian access from the street to the sidewalk, curbside uses, and the ability to provide emergency and utility services. We had a public hearing on this back in November, on November 7th, and we've spent the past 3 months hearing feedback, tweaking things, working with public works staff on what they could do to accommodate the things that we are hearing in community. I believe we've done our due diligence and that people are waiting for us to finish this up so they can make plans for their gardens here this spring in 2025. I'm aware that the need to apply for a permit is a point of contention, as is and has been the cost of such a permit. But I want to be clear, those are actually two separate things. So it's my hope we can come together and support the need for a permit as a way to ensure safe use of our right-of-way. My others, even authors, might have different opinions on that. It's my hope that we could also come to a separate agreement on permit fees. This morning, and there has been a change I haven't been able to pay attention to that came after the start of this meeting, there was a staff memo that suggested that one potential option would be to waive the permit fee for essentially the first couple years and let the fee schedule go into effect at the end of that term based on interest and workload. They would essentially have an introductory period and get, those most interested in being permitted at a lower cost, including those currently using the boulevard in ways that aren't maybe compliant with this new ordinance. I agree to their recommendation to waive the fee for 2 years, at which point we could all study it. We could reevaluate our policy and make decisions based on experience and data. I've written, but don't have ready for today, a legislative directive to simply track the actual cost of implementation of this ordinance change, and was planning to bring it forward on Thursday as a companion piece to this ordinance. It's being reviewed right now by Public Works and the city attorney. I understand that Councilmember Chowdhury might have some additional adds to that as a going forward kind of idea, and I'm happy to work with her before Thursday. Also on Thursday, I was planning to add the language that Public Works gave to us that any permit application fee shall not apply to permits issued for raised planter beds under this section for the next 2 years, so that we can study it, look at data. The future council can come back to make a decision on it once they have the data in front of them. Maybe they'll make no change, in which case there would be no fees. I have the most current language from Public Works, so do all of you. And that would essentially set up like a decision tree for permits and fees based on whether you're in or outside of a green zone, whether you just want a raised bed, or whether you want other kinds of uses in your boulevard, like installing your own bench or installing fencing or something like that. I think I probably should stop here because other colleagues then have other things to add to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Chowdhury.
Thank you so much, Chair Chavez, and thank you, Councilmember Palmisano. You just teed that up really, really well in terms of what we're trying to do here. We had a great community meeting last night. I think we had about nearly 40 people in attendance. A lot of people also wrote and said, okay, if you can send me the FAQ and just notes on the meeting, this is my email. And so lots of engagement. A lot of people were able to come, so I just thank them for joining. I thank Councilmember Cashman for being present there, Ruth Olson, and Councilmember Palmisano's office. And then particularly wanted to thank Jeff Handelin and Don Elwood for being there and presenting and taking on the questions with us. They really did their best in their expertise, and they even walked up and tried to answer some of the questions they had knowledge around when it related to the health department side, but they're the better people to ask on this. So that was really awesome. And I think we did a really good job of making sure that our community was informed. There was a lot of concerns of needing to pull out things from the boulevards that they've been planting for years because of the 18-inch limits at intersections and alleyways. Many people thought that that was for the entire boulevard. That's not the case. We've been talking about wanting people to do pumpkin patches and sunflowers as long as they don't flop into the sidewalks or the roads. But the place of contention for me and what I want to share with you colleagues today is what I intend on moving forward is this question about permitting altogether. And the reason why I've kind of shifted my perspective on requiring a permit for raised planter beds is really squarely on equity. It was said last night by a community member. They're like, the issue is beyond the green zones. And then I responded, yeah, the entire earth is a green zone. And the issues around equity with permitting is if you're a renter and you want to do a raised bed and you want to get a permit, you need to have the property owner agree, and you need proof of insurance. That's a barrier if you have a landlord. If you are a person of color, if you don't speak English, that's another barrier. If you are a person that has paid off their house and they might not have homeowners insurance, there's another question of okay, if I don't have insurance, what happens here? And then there are also many urban farmers that do nonprofit work or have a business where they'll work with homeowners or even renters in a home that have a boulevard, and they have these raised planting beds where they're growing and they're getting this nutritious food and they're selling it or giving it to areas that really need that type of food. And in just consulting with these gardeners and these business owners, they've heard from the property owners that they're working with that getting their signature, that insurance piece is a barrier for them. And they could really lose out in this process. And so the thing that I'm suggesting is that if we don't require a permit, we just are very clear on where the restrictions are for the raised beds. Have them be similar to the 18-inch like sightline requirements, like not within 40 feet within an intersection, 3 feet away from a fire hydrant, 10 feet away from an alley, and a number of others that are laid within this policy already. And I'd be happy to work with Public Works in determining like what other restrictions we need. And then if a raised bed, just like today, were to make things dangerous in the public right of way or impede accessibility, it could go through the complaint process, a letter would go out, and if the property owner didn't remove it, city staff would remove it. It would be the status quo of what we have for enforcement. And I think this is a good way for us to encourage growing, especially since our Edible Boulevards community oftentimes advocates to community members, hey, it might not be safe for you to plant in your soil directly, so you should have a raised bed. This is a way for us to achieve equity, but also make sure that there's safety on the public right of way that we're all responsible for as the city of Minneapolis. And so that's something that I'm gonna consider bringing forward. I wanna talk to my fellow authors about this, Councilmember Cashman, Palmisano, Councilmember Jenkins, see where your head's at. This is just something really just in reflection to last night's meeting. And I know that Councilmember Cashman has some thoughts and potential legislative directive that she wanted to discuss too. So I'll just pause there.
Next up, we have Councilmember Cashman.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. Thank you, Councilmember Palmisano. Thank you, Councilmember Chowdhury. Yeah, great meeting last night. It was really helpful for me because I'm having another community meeting in Ward 7 this weekend, this weekend on Sunday. Thank you, Grace, for coming to answer questions. I fully agree that we need to wrap this up this council cycle. I think it's really important that we pass the ordinance on Thursday because folks do need to plan. A lot of people use the boulevards for gardening, and that's a great thing. I know we have someone from Minneapolis Edible Boulevards here today, so thank you for coming and for advocating around this. And I think it's important that we wrap this up on Thursday so people can plan for the growing season. I'm really looking forward to the user guide that's going to be developed so that our information is out there on what's going to be allowed. And I did have a couple of questions, either Grace or Jeff, just following up from what I heard last night and things we weren't able to answer. The first one was about biochar. We had a C&I committee meeting last week, and the city is now going to be producing biochar this summer. So could one of you weigh in on whether biochar is going to be a permissible additive to folks' gardens, or if you have any concerns about that, and if it's referenced in the ordinance? If not, do we need to reference it to make sure people are aware of the rule regarding biochar?
Welcome up, Don.
Good afternoon, Chair Chavez, member of this committee. My name is Don Elwood. I'm the Director of Transportation Engineering and Design. Thank you for that question. I was there last night. The biochar is interesting and something that Public Works would like to explore across on how to use it. I don't know if I'm ready yet at this point to say how we would implement that in the ordinance. Because I don't know the depth and how deep you'd have to put it or what it would be, how it would be applied, but it's definitely something that Public Works is interested in pursuing.
Okay. I think that answers my question for now, that we don't need to add it into the ordinance per se, but that we could explore once this biochar facility opens this summer and we start using it, how we might need to address it in the policy going forward. But just for reference, biochar is a very good super compost, for lack of a better word, and can be great for folks gardening. And we want to make this accessible to people in the city to use and supplement their gardens. And it, I think, will be free as provided by the city. Another question that we had was about wood chips that the city does provide and the double shredded mulch that we really want to promote. Instead of wood chips, is there any recommended source of the double shredded mulch that we're promoting in this policy that we can also make available? to the community members who are doing this gardening, whether it's free or, subsidized in some way or just really readily accessible through a public company?
Chair Chavez, Councilmember Cashman, it's double shredded hardwood bark mulch is
Yeah.
what we put in the ordinance, and that was specific recommendations from our Surface Water and Sewers Division, because when it's applied on the ground, it tends not to float and wash away and get into our stormwater system. Your specific question on a supplier, I do not have that information available right now on where the product is available or how you get that. That is something that I have not pursued at this point. And the intent would be to add that into the user guide. But I'm waiting until we finalize the exact ordinance language and we understand how we're moving forward as a city. And then once I understand that, we'll be able to add that into the user guide.
All right, that's, I think it's helpful to know, like, the reason why we put that in the ordinance is for water quality purposes. And I know gardeners are very familiar with, some of those dangers, and nobody wants to be harming the water through gardening practices. A question that came up about this last night was whether wood chips would be allowed in raised beds because they wouldn't cause the stormwater issue, as in if they're used in a raised bed versus used on the ground, they wouldn't be causing the stormwater issue. So is it okay to use wood chips in the raised bed?
Chair Chavez, Councilmember Cashman, that is a very good question. My interpretation of why we required the double shredded hardwood bark was because it would not wash into our stormwater system, plug up our catch basins, and plug up the pipes. However, in situations where you're in a raised planter bed, the likelihood of that washing out due to rain or runoff does not exist. So I have not had a chance to double check with our Surface Water and Sewers Division, and that's one of the follow-up items I would need to do.
Okay, thank you. I think it's just important that we have answers to a couple of these questions before Thursday, and that we're able to accurately, speak to folks in our newsletters this week upon passage and at the event this Sunday, that we can answer these questions for folks to make their plans.
Cool.
And then I will just add that regarding the permitting issue, I do feel like permits are going to be prohibitive. And the reason I say that is because I myself am a renter, and going through the process of getting my landlord, who I think lives in Idaho, to give me permission and property insurance information in order to secure a permit for a raised bed, I don't think would be possible. And I think a lot of other people who are renters in the city, which the majority of people in our city are, would see that also as a barrier and think, okay, that's way too much work, I just can't do it. We also heard from homeowners last night who said, if I'm putting my property insurance on this permit, my property insurance is going to go up. And I think that's also a relevant concern, is we don't want to make boulevard gardening a reason that folks' costs go up in their daily life. I also saw the letter from Homegrown Food Council that Allison Babb sent to us. So it's signed by Jenny Breen and Marcus Carr, who are the Homegrown Minneapolis Food Council co-chairs, asking that no permit be required for raised beds and boulevards. And, we do create work groups like this to get community input from experts, and I think it's important that we listen to that input when we receive it. So if the Homegrown Food Council is saying, please do not require permits for raised beds and boulevards, then we should probably be, respecting and listening to them. And so I will likely support, Councilmember Chowdhury's work to remove this from the ordinance for Thursday. But one solution I wanted to offer for Public Works here is to write a legislative directive that just asks for the amount of 311 cases that come up about this issue over the course of this growing season during the summer, and present that to the C&I committee this fall so that we can review that in the fall and say, like, was there a huge abundance of 311 cases regarding problematic infrastructure in the Boulevard? And if so, at that time, the council could reopen the ordinance and perhaps make it more restrictive to address that challenge, if it does exist after this first piloted growing season. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I think some of the questions we had, I just want to make sure there's going to be administrative follow-up on the biochar. And Councilman Cashman, I think you had questions that we want to make sure there's follow-up. It was about biochar, double shredded mulch, and then clarifying the raised bed component. If you could repeat those questions, Councilman Cashman, just so our staff can make sure we get administrative follow-up.
Yeah, I think I'm clear on the biochar that we're going to just assess that after this year. So there won't be information to come forward before Thursday on that at this time. But the issue that Don Elwood said he would follow up with was whether or not we could allow wood chips in raised beds, given that it doesn't cause the surface water pollution issue, and whether or not we need to make changes in the ordinance to make sure that's clear. As well as whether we have a known supplier for the double shredded hardwood bark that we are promoting in the ordinance. Thanks.
Next up, we have Councilmember Koski.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. I just had a couple questions related to the permit process, and I haven't been part of the conversations and wasn't at the meeting last night. So I'm just curious to know, and maybe it's Mr. Elwood to answer, what was the intention for the permit in the first place? And I hear Councilmember Chowdhury talking about like regulations that regulating it was part of that process so that we would have contact information if someone was not in compliance, or what was the specifics for the needing a permit?
Chair Chavez, Councilmember Koski, thank you for that question. As we've worked through this process, we've tried to separate the permit from the fee. And one of the things with the permit, it helps us to provide better customer service. It helps us work with our residents to make sure that if they want to do a raised planter bed, it's not in a fire zone. That we can help them say, nope, that's in a fire zone, or we need to make sure we have sufficient clearances from utilities, fire hydrants, lights, street lights, things of that nature, so that we can do maintenance on our facilities. It helps us guide our residents on sight lines at intersections. This is very important not only for the pedestrians and bicycles, but for the people in vehicles, where we keep the planting height low so that people can see each other at those intersections. It allows us to work with our residents to talk about curbside uses, whether that be loading zones, bus stops, and even handicap parking areas. And so by having that permit in place, it allows the city to be more helpful with our residents to guide them through this process. Once I have a permit in place, it also allows me to track where those permits are in the city of Minneapolis.
Thank you. Just another follow-up question. Have we explored, I'm hearing definitely some of the barriers to this, and I'm just wondering, have we explored reducing the barriers to the permit process and what that looks like? For example, not having this insurance piece as part of it, or maybe you could explain why we are requiring someone to show insurance when they apply for the permit.
Chair Chavez, Councilmember Koski, that insurance requirement is when an item is placed in the boulevard, there is an inherent liability with the property owner that's associated with. Whether I have a permit or not, there is a liability factor when someone puts something in that boulevard space. The insurance requirement asks that property owner to put the city of Minneapolis on as an additional endorsement to help protect the city's side in the event of a loss. This is in risk management. They do this. We do this across the city for all sorts of permits and other requirements. So we are not asking the public to go out and get additional insurance. Typically, they already have that liability insurance coverage, and we are asking to be added on as an additional endorsement.
And so we have to do this, I'm hearing this. There's no way to reduce that in our permit process. Or I think we were talking about piloting without people, maybe I misunderstood, but for the first year or so, or maybe 2 years, we weren't going to require permits. What were we going to do during that time period?
Chair Chavez, Councilmember Koski, my understanding is that we would still require a permit, but the permit fee for a raised planter bed would be zero for the first 2 years.
It's just the fee part. Okay.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Palmisano.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to say the need to have a permit, if to just go through that educational sense of where things should be and maybe sight lines that the public, someone who wants to garden in the boulevard hasn't considered, is an important piece. And the need to have a permit has always been the bottom line for me and for Public Works in order for us to have a lot more structures in the city right of way. It's also been over a decade since I've been a renter, but I think I'd need permission from the property owner as a renter to plant up the boulevard, or I'd certainly risk termination of my lease over such a thing if I were to go out and plant up the boulevard. It also wouldn't require, it wouldn't prohibit me from going and planting up my neighbor's boulevard, so to speak. I also want to say these things are easier to manage on the front end before someone installs, say, a raised planter bed even, than later to say they're in an unsafe location and try to move them. They often, filled with soil, planting material would be a few hundred pounds. Sometimes that's not even possible. They don't have a bottom, or the onerous need to remove them from the boulevard. So I think that perhaps a way, if it's the will of the council to move on here, would be to move this forward, perhaps without recommendation to Thursday, and try to come to some agreement amongst the authors offline. But I think that the sticking point here is whether or not we're willing to have there be a permit at all here. And I think we might disagree on that, and that's okay. But I would suggest that we might move this forward without recommendation, but move it forward back to council and hope that we can get it done by Thursday. But so that's a suggestion. I see there's now other people in queue. I'm not trying to limit discussion here, but I would suggest that as one way to move forward here.
Thank you. I'll second that. Councilmember Jenkins.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. I'm clearly supportive of this Boulevard ordinance change, but I do think we need the permits in instances. We talk about renters. Renters move. I mean, that's a reality of life. And so how do we, if the renter moves, but the raised bed stays and there's no one responsible to care for it, what happens to it? And so the permit would give us an opportunity to understand who that renter is, who is responsible for this in the boulevard, and I think that is really important information to know. It is a separate fee issue, But I do know that fees to the city are particularly related directly to our ability to oversee, to follow up. It can't be any more than the cost of that service. And so, but that's a different debate. But I really do believe that we need permits to be able to manage this process. And I'm happy to move it forward to without recommendation. That seems to make sense to me.
Councilmember Vital.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I agree, Councilmember Jenkins, that permitting is really the way to go for responsibility, in my opinion. People need to be responsible for raised beds in particular. And I got in queue, though, because I wanted to speak to a comment that was made about the issue of green zones being the entire world. That may be true for some, but I think that the way the city defines green zones are neighborhoods that have been heavily polluted and marginalized and deal with a lot of racism and economic and political problems. So I want to just be clear that that may be true for some people, that it's the entire world, but for someone who represents a green zone, I don't want us to be put into that large category and to remain a green zone in Minneapolis, because the community that I serve and other communities have been deeply disenfranchised, and that's why they have that.
Vice Chair Chaudhary.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chair Chavez. I appreciate the discussion here. I totally support us moving this without recommendation. I think the thing that keeps on coming to mind with me here is that we have a current process for mismanaged raised beds and raised beds that are causing issues, and it's removal, and it's putting it on the property owner of the Boulevard, right? Status quo now is that, and then even into the future, we're going to see raised beds happen without a permit. We're going to see people leave a raised bed in a boulevard and not take care of it. And maybe within our policy, we should say that there's a process to address unmaintained raised beds. But I feel very, very concerned if we require a permitting process, we're going to be limiting community members that need this, that want to do this, that have income issues the most. We're going to hurt local businesses, and we're going to make this overly difficult when the whole goal is to make this more accessible. And a lot of the raised beds that happen throughout the city, where they might not have the green zone designation, those fresh foods and vegetables that are grown there are directed into the green zones. And that comment that I shared from a community member, that was in a discussion that we had where they themselves lived in a green zone. And they were saying, the world is burning and the soil is polluted, and we shouldn't limit the work that we're trying to do across the city to make sure that we get nutritious, safe, healthy food all around. I think the green zone designation is super important, but I thought that the point that they made as someone that lives in the green zone was really, really well taken to me, because these types of restrictions would impact our green zones, and it would impact residents across the board. That's why I just don't think the cost and the benefit is here, and I'm supportive of Councilmember Cashman's measured approach of studying what are the complaints, what are the issues that we're seeing arise based on data with raised beds throughout our city, and then kind of going back and saying, yeah, we might need to be more restrictive, or we might need to consider permitting, but it's just not something I'm willing to support if we're going to make it more difficult for community members to do these types of planting.
Councilmember Rainville.
Thank you. I have a question for our attorney. Could you just speak about this insurance requirement again? I do appreciate the Public Works response, but can you, what is the responsibility for us to protect the city's interest as far as asking to have the city be named on that insurance indemnification as well?
Chair Chavez and Councilmember Rainville, I'll respond the best I can. I have not been involved in this specifically. While I have knowledge on insurance, I don't have a lot on homeowners insurance. But the difference would be that if the city is named on the policy as an additional insured, then if there were a claim, the insurance company would have to step in and defend and indemnify the claim against the city, which is different than, for example, if the city were not on the policy and something happened in the Boulevard. The city could make a claim against the homeowner. The homeowner's insurance would presumably pick up that claim if it resulted from the homeowner's conduct, but the insurance company won't step in to pay for the city's defense and necessarily indemnify the city.
Thank you. So you have me more confused. What would benefit the homeowner more if the city went after the homeowner directly or the city went after the homeowner's insurance policy?
Chair Chavez and Councilmember Rainville, I'll do my best to answer that. My best guess is there wouldn't be much of a difference because in either case, the insurance company would be stepping in. So from the homeowner's perspective, your insurance company is providing coverage and the insurance is treating it as a claim. I can't speak as to how homeowners insurance companies rate claims, like if they would treat those two different situations, but it probably wouldn't be a huge difference from the homeowner's perspective. The city is getting additional protection.
Thank you.
Councilmember Vita.
Thank you, Chair. Again, doubling down on a poor comment doesn't make it better, especially when you say someone else said it. It's a green zone for a reason. It's a green zone because it's underserved, deeply underserved. And no matter who says it, where they live or not, it's still a poor comment to make about a green zone. There are people who live there. There are people who are deeply underserved that have little to no resources. And so to be deemed a green zone, it's not a badge of honor. It's just saying we need more help is what people feel like. And doubling down and saying somebody else said it or whatever doesn't make the comment better. It was in poor taste, own it, that's it.
All right. Okay, I have myself on cue. I just want to make a few comments on the ordinance. I don't support having permits or fees on this. I think that it is important that we create more access, more food access in our city, more equity in our system to ensure that people can grow more food, to make sure that people can address food deserts, to make sure that when we pass ordinances, we're advancing equity. And I do think that permits and fees are a barrier to creating that. I still haven't seen with this process how we are going to ensure that people that speak different languages are going to be walked through and how to apply to these permits that are a barrier to equity, to access to food growing. And I think it is still a sticking point for me. And my concern is that with this process, we are going to create more barriers for people to be able to grow. So with Councilmember Palmisano's motion to move without recommendation, as we are still having many more conversations as we head on to Thursday's meeting, I will second that. There is no one else on queue, so the clerk, if you can call the roll, that would be great.
Councilmember Payne.
Aye.
Wansley.
Aye.
Rainville.
Aye.
Vita.
Aye.
Ellison.
Aye.
Osman.
Aye.
Cashman.
Aye.
Jenkins.
Aye.
Chugtai.
Aye.
Kosky.
Aye.
Palmisano.
Aye.
Vice Chair Chowdhury.
Aye.
Chair Chavez.
Aye.
There are 13 ayes.
And that item is moved without recommendation to the full council meeting. Our next item is requesting two actions. One is approving a request to the city auditor, and the other is approving a legislative directive. Both of these actions are related to the vendor selection for the South Minneapolis Community Safety Center, and they will be moved together as one item. I will have Councilmember Kosky introduce these items.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. Colleagues, today I'm introducing two critical actions to ensure that our city's procurement process is fair, transparent, and aligned with the values and priorities of the residents that we serve. The public expects and deserves accountability in how we spend taxpayer dollars, especially when funding programs intended to promote safety and support vulnerable communities. The integrity of our city's contracting process is at stake. When we allocate public funds, we have a responsibility to ensure those dollars are invested in organizations that are ethical, effective, and aligned with our city's values of equity, justice, and public safety. But troubling revelations about the recent request for proposal process for the South Minneapolis Community Safety Center have raised serious concerns about whether that responsibility was upheld. The City of Minneapolis issued an RFP seeking vendors to provide police training and victim support services related to human trafficking. Multiple organizations submitted proposals, and it was later reported that Our Rescue, a national anti-trafficking organization under federal scrutiny, subject to multiple investigations and linked to extremist groups, was awarded a contract. As public concerns mounted, additional discrepancies came to light. A group of service providers, local service providers, initially informed that their proposals had received the highest score for both police training and victim support services, later discovered that the police training portion of the contract had been reassigned to another vendor. These irregularities call into question whether the city's competitive procurement policies were properly followed and whether taxpayer dollars are being awarded in a manner that reflects fairness, transparency, and integrity. The first motion I'm introducing formally requests that the city auditor undertake an audit of the RFP procurement and contracting process related to vendor selection of the South Minneapolis Community Safety Center, with a specific focus on the decision to select Our Rescue. While the City Council does not have the authority to direct the city auditor to conduct an audit, we can and must make the request in light of these serious concerns. Should the auditor and audit committee choose to proceed, this audit would examine the development and issuance of the RFP, including the criteria and procedures used to evaluate the proposals, the contracting procedures, and the decision-making process behind vendor selection, the timeline and documentation to determine whether proper procedures were followed, any irregularities or deviations from standard procurement practices, and recommendations to improve transparency, accountability, and adherence to city policies in future procurement processes. An independent audit would help restore public confidence by ensuring that city contracts are awarded fairly, competitively, and in line with the principles of good governance. It is essential that we scrutinize how public money is spent to ensure our investments truly serve our communities. The second motion I'm introducing is a legislative directive to ensure that key information regarding the entire RFP process for the South Minneapolis Community Safety Center is made publicly available. This directive requests a comprehensive review and analysis, including the criteria and procedures used to develop and evaluate RFPs, the methods, such as scoring and ranking, used to assess proposals, copies of all submitted proposals, evaluation records, and decision-making documentation, a full explanation of the vendor selection process, including any deviations from initial evaluations, and a complete timeline of the RFP process from issuance to final selection. Unlike the audit request, the legislative directive ensures that regardless of whether an audit occurs, this critical information is disclosed to the public. Transparency is not optional when public dollars are at stake. Our residents have the right to see how their money is being spent and to trust that we are investing in organizations that reflect our city's priorities. These motions work together to ensure both accountability and transparency. The audit request seeks an independent review with recommendations for improvement, while the legislative directive guarantees the public has access to critical information. But this is about more than just one contract. It's about making sure our city's procurement process reflects our values of fairness and accountability, and that we invest public funds responsibly in organizations that truly serve and strengthen our communities. As elected officials, it's our duty to protect the public interest, safeguard taxpayer dollars, and ensure that our contracting processes are beyond reproach. I urge my colleagues to support these motions so that we can take meaningful steps forward towards restoring public trust and ensuring that city funds are spent in ways that reflect our priorities. Thank you.
Councilmember Palmisano.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to first start by making clear that the city was not going to pay Our Rescue for their services. It was said public dollars were at stake. That's false. The city had a zero no-cost contract being organized with Our Rescue, who agreed to offer $1 million in training and services at the South Minneapolis Community Safety Center. As this contract became increasingly politicized, facts about the agreement were at best omitted and at worst purposely misrepresented. We don't know. I would suggest we start by simply asking the organizations that responded to this RFP to simply allow the RFP to be daylighted, to have it just simply be public information. And those who are interested in taking a look at those applications can look at them and make their own decisions about how the city should have gone. And there could be a difference of opinion, but it seems a bit overkill to have to go through all of this other rigmarole when we could instead just simply ask the organizations that had responded if we could make their responses public. Let me tell you where I come from on this. I have long been engaged in anti-trafficking work in many forms. I've worked closely with the MPD to better understand what sex trafficking looks like in Minneapolis and how we can best support victims. I've worked with local advocacy groups to author business licensing and regulation ordinances to prevent sex trafficking and to safeguard against the exploitation of sex workers in our city. I first heard about Our Rescue from a constituent who works and consults for the organization, and she reached out to me, wondering, was there an opportunity for Our Rescue to provide resources to the city? That's when I found out that Our Rescue was likely to move their headquarters to Minneapolis, and I connected them with Office of Community Safety staff to explore a possibility of a partnership. No one has denied or concealed legitimate and troubling allegations against the former CEO of this organization, not me and not Tammy Lee, their new CEO. Let me also say out loud that claims by my colleagues that Our Rescue is QAnon adjacent are slanderous and false. This false statement is only circulating. I had to do some research on this. This false statement is circulating from a single report by a website no longer active. That article attempts to tie individuals who were not Our Rescue employees to QAnon. I can't believe I'm saying QAnon out loud here on the dais here but it is 2025, so I guess here we go, people. Point being, the views of those people do not reflect Our Rescue. It does not reflect their leadership, and it does not reflect the organization at large. Our Rescue has repeatedly, publicly denied connections to QAnon and rejected its theories. Tammy Lee, their new CEO, has been on the White House Interagency Task Force to combat trafficking in persons. So the fact that my colleagues want to use this microphone to make allegations about this person who's lived an active civic life and organizations around our metropolitan area, is really troubling to me. And as she said in the letter sent to all of us today, she has worked to rebuild this organization from the ground up, including restructuring the board, relocating the entire organization, and replacing nearly half of the staff. That's not the work of someone who's carrying on with business as usual. Tammy Lee is a leader who saw an organization with tremendous issues and tremendous resources and took on the enormous task of charting a new course with Our Rescue. Her desire to partner with the city and do this work in a way that aligns with our shared vision of public safety, one that is just and it serves all members of our community, was just another example of her commitment to changing the trajectory of this organization. The fact of the matter is this: Our Rescue will now be located in Minneapolis, and they will be engaged in this work, regardless of this partnership. We had a real opportunity here, though, to shape their path forward and leverage their resources, and that is no longer the case. If we want to have a serious conversation about transparency, let's start from a place of factual accuracy. First, unlike the millions of taxpayer dollars this council has allocated to unvetted nonprofits, this was actually a no-cost contract. This was likely one of the only, if not the only, vendor at the South Minneapolis Community Safety Center who was bringing money to the table rather than receiving money from the city. Secondly, I absolutely agree there should be transparency and established processes that dictate how we select vendors and spend taxpayer dollars. I've said this over and over again. In just the past 6 months, I have been on the losing side of these votes, but I have still said we shouldn't be allocating millions of taxpayer dollars to building rehabilitation without first initiating a competitive bid process and doing a capital needs assessment. And I've said we shouldn't be allocating millions of taxpayer dollars to nonprofits handpicked by my colleagues through the budget process without any formal process. What I don't agree with is leveraging transparency to make some kind of other type of point, but not allocating money without any process when it serves political ends. That's not transparent, accountable, or fair. That's politics. This discussion is part of a larger pattern. Right now, we're applying intense scrutiny to a zero-cost contract. Other times, this body has applied no scrutiny to multi-million-dollar payments and even attacked staff for doing their jobs and applying some amount of oversight. Actions here speak louder than words. Rebuilding public trust is going to require more than legislative directives, audits, and speeches from this dais. It's going to require that this body actually act in accordance with these stated values and stop allocating taxpayer dollars without any processes.
Councilmember Wansley.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. First, thank you to Councilmember Koski for bringing these actions forward. I will be supporting all of them. Also, thank you to all the members of the media, the public, and local credible anti-trafficking organizations, in particular, the link for raising the alarm about this situation. Intense public scrutiny caused the mayor's administration to simply walk back this troubling proposal and resolicit the contract, and it should have never taken that to happen in the first place, especially when we knew that there are numerous credible, trusted local organizations that do anti-trafficking work. And it's incredibly disturbing and confusing that instead of partnering with any of these groups, the mayor's administration proposed working with an organization with a deeply troubled past that involves practices that have actually put victims in dangerous situations. And this was information that was readily available by a simple Google search that was somehow seemingly overlooked by our professional staff in the Office of Community Safety. Council offices have been asked how an organization like Our Rescue was seriously considered for any form of partnership with the city, especially in a space that has been promised to the community as a space that will not repeat the harm and trauma of the 3rd Precinct, which inflicted that on residents for decades. And the South Minneapolis Community Safety Center was a promise to do better, and the administration's actions here rightfully question whether the community should trust that promise. And I'm hopeful that this audit will give us more information about how the Frye administration simply got here. And the 3rd Precinct / South Minneapolis Community Safety Center, located in Ward 2, I want to make it clear for my residents also who've raised numerous concerns around this, absolutely we should not be tolerating predatory groups like Our Rescue, also known formerly as Operation Underground Railroad. We should not be allowing those to come into Ward 2 or into the city. And I'm sorry, no amount of rebranding should change that and will change that. I also want to note that I am extremely disappointed by the lack of communication and critical information from the administration after the public became aware of who was awarded the RFP. My office had to field significant constituent correspondences when the media shared the administration's vendor selection. And when I reached out to Commissioner Barnett to receive more information, I heard nothing back. And after reaching out to Councilmember Chavez to understand if he knew anything as a chair of the Public Health and Safety Committee, I was surprised to hear that he actually did receive some correspondence back from Commissioner Barnett, but the commissioner suggested that he reached out to Councilmember Palmisano to get more information. And that was extremely troubling for a variety of reasons. But I think it's important to name for me, especially considering 2 weeks ago, we had Commissioner Barnett make statements to the press multiple times, falsely alleging that I was attempting to inappropriately rig a city procurement process for contracts that we're actually going to be considering on this agenda right after this item. And now here we are looking at a situation where Commissioner Barnett stated that a council member was the best person to go to for more information on a vendor selection process rather than administrative staff in the procurement office or another staff member in the Office of the Community Safety. And there should never be a scenario where an individual council member has more non-public information on vendor selection or more information than the staff themselves. And that is an incredibly ironic dynamic and once again justifies council's continued scrutiny into OCS's programmatic and operations and management practices that constantly leads to troubling outcomes. And I really do want my colleagues to sit with this for a minute. If there had not been public scrutiny on this, we will likely have not learned about this situation. In fact, we probably would have learned about it at the grand opening for the South Minneapolis Safety Center, and where would that have put us then? How would our residents felt in that moment knowing about this partnership in 2026? So this experience for me has really affirmed how vitally important it is that the public continues to work with council to hold this administration accountable. And I do want to assure our residents that I will continue doing everything within council's authority to hold a high standard for building a comprehensive community safety system that does include reputable and trusted community partnerships. And I do look forward to the results of this audit so that council can take whatever necessary corrective action so situations like this does not happen again.
All right, next on queue, I have a question for Commissioner Barnett. Thanks, Commissioner, for being here. Can you walk us through when the offer was made to our rescue to establish this partnership?
Chair Chavez, I would have to go and get notes and stuff. I had not planned on answering any questions today. I was here because I know that the contracts for GVI and Y-GVI were being presented today. So I'm not prepared to answer that question.
If we can write that down for administrative follow-up, the exact date, and if there's emails that we can get access to ensure when this partnership was going to be established, I think that's important because we have a newsletter from a council member on January 24th announcing that their partnership was going to come to the South Minneapolis Community Safety Center. So I think it's important that we have many questions here of how does one council member have access to this information announcing this partnership through a newsletter, and the rest of us did not know what was happening. So I think the concerns you're hearing today is just that lack of information, unvetted projects coming to the South Minneapolis Community Safety Center, and a lack of information that we're receiving. So we'll get that administrative follow-up. I think it's important for us to have access to that information. Thank you. Next up, we have Council Vice President Chuck Ty.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to speak on just some troubling comments from my perspective on the monetary value of a potential contract with this organization, and you know, just the implication that because this is this was going to be a $0 contract, there's kind of like no harmed party, no loss suffered really by anyone in this equation because of that monetary value. You know, I had an opportunity to meet with our staff in the procurement division within our Finance and Property Services Department. You know, we had an extensive conversation just around procurement practices and reforms that have been made to that process over the last couple of years. And one of the things that came up during that conversation was this particular contract. You know, I got to learn a little bit more about the immense amount of value that this contract would have had, monetary and otherwise. So as an example, like the organization in question here was quoted in the Star Tribune, in the paper of record for our city, right? Saying that they were going to offer the city you know, services, including training and other services valued at least $1 million. The thing that I learned from our procurement team was that the space in the South Minneapolis Community Safety Center that the organization was going to be in, the physical space they were going to be in, has obviously a monetary value, and was going to have both a monetary and a reputational benefit to the organization as well. All of those things have real value attached to them, and so to like dismiss concerns because it was a $0 contract, I don't. That doesn't sit right with me when there's a clear, quantifiable monetary value that we are talking about in this case.
All right, no one is on cue. So on the motion to approve, they're moving those two items together, items number 7 and 8. If the clerk can please call the roll on the approval of both those items.
Councilmember Payne.
Aye.
Wansley. Aye. Rainville.
No.
Vita.
Aye.
Ellison.
Aye.
Osman.
Aye.
Cashman.
Aye.
Jenkins.
Aye.
Chugtag.
Aye.
Koski. Aye. Palmisano.
No.
Vice Chair Chowdhury.
Aye.
Chair Chavez.
Aye.
There are 11 ayes and 2 nays.
Items number 6 and 7 move forward to full council. Item 6.1 and 6.2. All right. Next item we have is item number 7. It's contract with multiple organizations for the 2025 Youth Group Violence Intervention Services. And we have items number 8, which is contracts with multiple organizations for group violence intervention services. And we can talk about both those items. Welcome up.
Chair Chavez, council members, my name is Leah Lakes. I'm the Deputy Director of Neighborhood Safety. Thank you for this opportunity to present on the Neighborhood Safety's request for proposal process for both the Group Violence Intervention, GVI, and Youth Group Intervention, Y-GVI, RFP process. I would like to briefly highlight a high-level overview for the public of how an RFP process generally works and the importance of a good RFP process to make sure that we have good service delivery. A well-designed request for proposals plays a critical role in ensuring successful program implementation and accountability. The first step in an RFP process is a specific need or gap in service is identified, as well as a source of funding to meet that need. Based on this identified need and the amount of money that is available to meet that need, a request for proposal document is developed. Qualified organizations are invited to submit detailed proposals in response to the issued RFP document. Next, the proposals are evaluated using standardized criteria, which is published in the RFP. Next, contract negotiations with the responders chosen based off the evaluation criteria would begin. Then, a contract will get signed that outlines the work that the vendor will do and how the vendor will get paid to do that work. An example of an RFP process, if the city of Honolulu conducted a community feedback survey that identified the need for diverse animal exhibits and educational programming, they would develop an RFP document to request proposals for operating a zoo. The RFP could inform potential responders interested in operating a zoo for specific requirements for the zoo to operate, such as animal care certification and permits, facility size, and exhibit space expectations. The responders to the RFP would submit detailed operational plans around animal care facilities, veterinary service descriptions, administration structures, staff qualifications, and then the city would review the submissions and review which responder best meets the requirements established based off of what they provided. Next, a contract would be negotiated with the selected responders, and the city might ask the zoo to have 25 penguins. The responders would say they can only respond 10 penguins. And an agreement between these two organizations would need to be developed, documented in the contract, and that contract would outline the zoo operation performance metrics, service level agreements, payment terms, and pricing control. Once both parties agree to the terms outlined in this contract, the contract would be signed and implemented. The selected vendor would follow the established performance and reporting requirements outlined in the contract, such as submitting weekly reports on how many people visited the zoo, how much food each animal ate, and what exhibits were the most popular. A thorough RFP process serves as the foundation for program success in several key ways. It clearly defines our expectations and deliverables up front, leaving no room for misinterpretation about what services must be provided. It allows us to evaluate potential vendor capabilities comprehensively before making a significant financial commitment. It also creates a framework that enables us to hold vendors accountable for their commitments. It ensures fair competition and transparency in our vendor selection process. Through our RFP process, we can establish these specific measurable outcomes that a vendor must achieve, including clear performance metrics and reporting requirements, specific staffing qualifications and training standards, detailed financial management and oversight procedures, regular program evaluation, and outcome measure protocols. This structured approach not only helps us select the most qualified vendor, but it provides us with the tools that we need to monitor and enforce program compliance throughout the contract period. When we invest the time and effort into a comprehensive RFP process, we're not just selecting a vendor, we're building a framework for success that protects our investment and the community's safety. The RFP we're talking about today was the RFPs for both the Group Violence Intervention RFP and the Youth Group Violence Intervention RFP. These intervention strategies represent a collaborative effort between multiple stakeholders, including the GVI Y-GVI vendors, Hennepin County Parole, NSD staff, National Network of Safe Communities, and law enforcement, who all engage with Minneapolis residents who have been involved in violent crimes. GVI and Y-GVI both focus on directly engaging with the small but influential group of individuals who may be responsible for a significant portion of the violence in Minneapolis. The specifics of the NSD RFP process for the GVI, Y-GVI RFP is what I'll be discussing next. Planning for the RFP process for the Y-GVI and GVI contracts began in August of 2024 so that we could have new contracts in place by April 1st of 2025. This is important because the current contracts expire March 31st, 2025, and we wanted to make sure that we do not have a gap in service for our community members who are served through the GVI, Y-GVI approach. The planning of the RFP process involved extensive collaboration with key stakeholders, including the National Network of Safe Communities, who served as our technical advisors, the Hennepin County Juvenile Probation, Neighborhood Safety Department Program Manager, procurement, as well as the City Attorney's Office. Some of the recommendations for the RFP from the NSD Program Manager included that we implement strict financial stability requirements for our vendors, that we established hourly rate limits based on industry standards, mandatory submission of staff resumes and documents for all new hires, clear qualification standards for all program staff, regular monitoring for potential conflicts of interest. We also collaborated with Hennepin County Juvenile Probation Department regarding improvements to our Youth Violence Intervention Program based on our conversations with the Corrections Unit Supervisor at Hennepin County, which revealed several critical areas for enhancement for our new Y-GVI RFP. They recommended that we implement a structured referral system through probation, featuring weekly customized meetings with stakeholders, need for clear guidelines on allowable program expenses and potential spending caps, the importance of establishing transition protocols for youth completing probation. Through our meeting with Hennepin County Corrections team, we identified several key priorities for our Y-GVI RFP. The need to expand our vendor diversity to better serve our youth population, the importance of ensuring vendors can effectively serve youth of all genders, the critical need for comprehensive resource availability for referred youth. I am particularly grateful for Hennepin County Correction Program Manager's commitment to reviewing our Y-GVI RFP and providing detailed recommendations for improvement. One of the most significant insights from this discussion is the importance of gender-inclusive programming. Historical limitations in this area have created barriers in our referral process. Our new RFP criteria explicitly required vendors to demonstrate their capability to serve youth of all gender identities effectively. The Neighborhood Safety Department is also improving our fiscal oversight, and we are implementing more cost control measures in our Y-GVI approach through this new Y-GVI RFP. Through careful monitoring of past program expenses, our NSD staff identified concerning patterns in purchasing of cell phones for program participants under the current Y-GVI contract. We observed that vendors were submitting invoices for phones costing between $700 to $1,000 each, an expense that raised immediate questions about responsible use of city funds. In response, we took proactive steps to research best practices and consulted with Hennepin County to understand their approach to the necessity of this in a Y-GVI program. What we discovered was illuminating. Hennepin County successfully uses AT&T prepaid phones and phone cards, and their solution cost approximately $40.80 for 30 days of service. This represents a significant potential saving compared to our current vendor practices. This finding exemplifies our commitment to responsible stewardship of public funds. We are incorporating these insights into our new RFP requirement to ensure vendors adopt more cost-effective solutions while maintaining program effectiveness. Our engagement with the National Network of Safety Communities during the RFP planning phase was also critical for several reasons. Their expertise ensures that our RFP aligns with proven core principles of the GVI Y-GVI models. They provided guidance in the shaping program requirements that reflect best practices. By partnering with NNSC from the beginning, we created an RFP that incorporates national best practices while addressing local needs and creates a framework for successful program implementation. This collaborative approach strengthens our violence prevention interventions and helps ensure the most effective use of resources. These improved measures in the RFP will also help ensure responsible stewardship of public funds while maintaining high-quality service delivery. Through diligent consultations with our partners and stakeholders, we ensured that our RFP met several critical criteria. We made sure that it was compliant with all legal standards and best procurement practices, clean and robust eligibility requirements transparent proposal instructions, clear, fair, and thorough review process, reasonable schedule timelines, and sound financial assessment requirements. Per Resolution 2016R558, all requests for proposals for professional, technical, and service contracts anticipated to exceed $175,000 must undergo review by a procurement review committee prior to City Council consideration. This represents an important stage in our oversight process. The Y-GVI, GVI RFP both of these RFPs were both worth over $170K, and so it did undergo a review by the city's Permanent Review Committee. This committee, that all RFPs over $175,000 are required by, included members from the City Operations Officer, a Chief Financial Officer representative, a Civil Rights Department representative, a CPED representative, Office of the City Attorney representative, procurement representative, and a Public Works representative. Each committee member thoroughly reviewed the proposed RFPs and provided their approval, confirming that this RFP meets the required standards. This multiple department review process ensures transparency, due diligence, and proper oversight of our contracting procedures. I would next like to provide an overview of our comprehensive outreach efforts for the 2025 Y-GVI and GVI RFP. Our goal was to ensure broad awareness and maximize participation from qualified organizations across our communities. The RFP, once approved, was published and distributed to potential responders. Through GovDelivery, we reached 7,619 recipients, and through Comet eSupplier Portal, we invited over 786 suppliers and bidders to participate. The Neighborhood Safety Y-GVI and GVI Program Manager notified all current Y-GVI and GVI vendors that the new RFP was open for new proposals. The Neighborhood Safety Contract Specialist emailed 150 individuals from a maintained list of partners, community organizations, and external stakeholders to inform them that the RFP was now open for new proposals and asking them to share the proposal request within their networks. This multi-channel outreach strategy demonstrates our commitment to fostering an inclusive and competitive selection process. By conducting strategic and thorough outreach, we aimed to identify the most qualified partners and to ensure a variety of responders with diverse skill set and services would apply. Understanding the importance of providing equal access to information around the RFP application process, we organized a virtual pre-proposal meeting for potential RFP responders, which was held on October 23, 2024. This meeting served as a critical platform for potential applicants to ask questions directly to city staff and receive guidance on the RFP and application process. While attendance wasn't mandatory, we encouraged participation and ensured that the meeting details were clearly communicated in the RFP. To maintain transparency, we posted the PowerPoint slides and the questions and answers from this meeting as an addendum to the public solicitation, making it accessible to all interested parties. Following our established protocol, we implemented an 8-day question and answer period during which potential responders had the opportunity to submit their RFP-related inquiries via email to our department. In maintaining our commitment to transparency, we compiled and published all responses in a comprehensive addendum, which was made available to the public 3 days after the conclusion of the Q&A period. The next critical step was assembling our review team to review and score the RFP applications. Our Assistant Director of Compliance led a thorough recruitment process for reviewers to evaluate the proposals, focusing on building a diverse panel of experts, including those from the National Network of Safe Communities, and provided thorough pre-evaluation training. One of the ways we recruited reviewers was by emailing our maintained list of city partners, city staff, and experts in violence prevention. We also did external research for recruitment. For example, we researched who was on the City of Minneapolis's Public Health Advisory Committee, and we contacted them to see if they or anyone in their network would potentially be interested in lending their expertise to our review process. We also did not stop our recruitment once we got the minimum number of volunteers, but we continued to ask for individuals to volunteer in case of scheduling challenges that might arise for reviewers during their evaluation period. We deliberately recruit new reviewers whenever possible. We do this by asking people who have reviewed in the past to share the opportunity to be a reviewer with those in their network, and by persistently reaching out to those who have relevant expertise based on our research. We recognize that fresh perspectives are crucial for objective and thorough evaluation. This practice serves multiple important purposes. It prevents the development of unconscious bias and potential collusion that might emerge from using the same reviewers repeatedly. It allows us to match specific expertise with the unique requirements of the RFP. It ensures a broader range of professional viewpoints in the evaluation process, and it maintains the integrity and the fairness of a procurement process. Early recruitment of reviewers is a key component of a successful reviewer recruitment strategy, as it provides adequate time to assess their qualifications, confirm their availability, and ensure reviewers are well suited for the specific requirements of each RFP. On November 18th, 2024, we conducted a comprehensive pre-evaluation meeting to teach evaluators we recruited on how to score the RFP. This meeting served as an essential step in ensuring the integrity and the consistency of our evaluation process. The pre-evaluation meeting serves several key critical purposes. It ensures that all reviewers, regardless whether they are new or experienced, have a clear understanding of the specific RFP requirements and evaluation criteria. It provides a forum for addressing questions that clarify potential areas of confusion. It establishes consistent evaluation standards across all reviewers. And it helps prevent miscommunication that could delay the process or impact decision quality. Overall, the pre-evaluation training is an opportunity to review the do's and don'ts of the evaluation process and ensure that everyone understands the procedures and the standards that might not be familiar to those who are not procurement professionals. By implementing these pre-evaluation trainings, we maintain the highest standard of fairness and efficiency in our procurement process, ultimately serving the best interests of our communities. After the pre-evaluation training, the evaluators then score the responders' proposals based off of the scoring criteria that is outlined in the RFP. It's important to emphasize that our RFP evaluation process, which is written in support of NNSC, the City Attorney's Office, and procurement, was strictly merit-based and focused on specific measurable criteria, which were outlined in the RFP itself. The selection process evaluated organizations based off of their demonstrated ability to deliver effective intervention services while maintaining strong financial management and operational controls. Special emphasis was placed on organizations with proven experience in working with at-risk individuals and established community connections. The eligibility criteria and scoring for the Y-GVI and GVI RFP is as follows. To be eligible to apply for these specific RFPs, responders needed to be a nonprofit organization, neighborhood organization, cultural organization, place of worship or faith, or other entities to do business inside of the state of Minnesota. Government entities were not eligible. Responders must have a history of serving people in Minneapolis for at least 1 year and must not be listed on the federal or state department list. The responding organization's leadership personnel must not have any felony convictions for committing financial fraud.
I'm just going to ask the body a quick question because we only have interpreters until 4 p.m. We want to make sure that if we are going to go past 4 p.m., that at least we ask, make sure that we have this accessible to the public. I want to ask our colleagues if folks can stay until 4:15 possibly. I'm not sure, but I just want to make sure that I'm communicating that out right now. We have captioning until 4 p.m. $4:15 it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Must not have any felony convictions for committing financial fraud or similar crimes. Our selection process for the Y-GVI and GVI RFP utilized a rigorous scoring system across multiple critical areas. Each proposal was evaluated objectively based on only information provided in the proposal. No external research was done on any of the vendors or the personal experience that people had with vendors. None of that was used in the evaluation of the proposals. The scoring of the evaluation is broken down as follows. Program overview. This section was worth 30 points of the RFP score out of 100. Here we were examining the depth and effectiveness of proposed intervention strategies. Community asset mapping was worth 10 points out of 100. Here we were assessing understanding and utilization of community resources. Financial management and reporting was worth 10 points out of 100. Here we were evaluating fiscal responsibility and transparency. Staff qualifications and management was worth 10 points out of 100. Here we were reviewing team capabilities and supervision structure. Financial risk assessment was worth 20 points out of 100. Here we were analyzing operational financial stability. Cost proposal budget narrative was worth 20 points out of 100. Here we were examining budget efficiencies and allocations. This structured scoring system ensured both current and new applicants' proposals were evaluated equally based on their current capabilities and proposed programs. The selection was made by a diverse evaluation team, including both City of Minneapolis staff and external reviewers. It was the overall strength of the proposals across all these metrics that determined their selection. This comprehensive approach helps ensure we're selecting responders best positioned to deliver effective services going forward. NSD has improved our selection process from past RFPs via the assistance of experts to ensure that those who are most qualified are selected. Our selection process is designed to ensure we partner with organizations who can deliver the highest quality services while maintaining strict best procurement practices. The selection of who we entered contract negotiations with is based on what is outlined in the RFP, which was based on recommendations from NNSC and the City of Minneapolis Procurement Department. We are currently in the selection and contract negotiation phase of this RFP. While we are currently still under contract negotiations, and we are not sure Specifically, what the final terms outlined in the contracts will be, our current anticipated goals and outcomes for Y-GVI include increased opportunity to intervene and prevent group violence, greater connection of youth to community outreach and support services, including trauma-informed services for both youth and their families, more opportunities for youth to remain safe and in their communities, reduced incidence of group violence. NSD will support the development and monitoring of output and outcome measures for our services. Evaluation potentially could be based on some of the following data points: number of individuals identified as appropriate for Y-GVI, number of individuals invited to custom notifications, number of individuals invited to a custom notification, and the percentage of those who participate, number of individuals who participate in custom notification and then enroll in Y-GVI services, number of Y-GVI participants who perceive that Y-GVI helped them move closer to exiting the cycle of violence, number of Y-GVI participants who become involved in serious violence, either as victims or perpetrators, during or after their involvement in Y-GVI, and making sure that this data is desegregated by race, gender, ethnicity, and geographical location as appropriate. Again, these are only examples of what the potential reporting metrics could look like with these new contracts, as we are still under current contract negotiations and have not finalized the reporting and success criteria at this time. Award amounts and participant numbers were decided based on the information vendors submitted in their RFP application and based on the funds NSD had available from funding following the approved budget amendments. For the Y-GVI RFP, we are requesting authorization to enter into contracts with 3 exceptional organizations: Emerge, Sabathani Community Center, and the Man Up Club for our 2025 Youth Group Violence Intervention Initiatives for a total investment of $329,411. Our youth group violence intervention work is built on proven evidence-based approaches that address a critical reality. A small number of individuals drive a large share of the violence in our cities. By approving these contracts, we're not just funding programs, we're investing in a comprehensive solution that combines community engagement, social services, and target interventions. These organizations were selected through a rigorous evaluation process, demonstrating their exceptional qualifications and commitment to our community. Emerge brings an extensive experience in violence interruption and prevention. Sabathani Community Center offers 60 years of community service and holistic support. The Man Up Club provides specialized mentorship with an emphasis in serving young men of color. By approving these contracts, you're enabling a coordinated effort to directly engage with at-risk youth, to provide clear pathways away from violence, offer essential support services and resources, create accountability within peer groups, and build stronger community connections. We're also requesting authorization to enter into contracts with 3 other organizations: W. Berry Consulting, Emerge Community Development, and Urban Youth Conservation for our 2025 Group Violence Intervention Initiative. This would be a total investment of $470,587. Our GVI strategy represents a collaborative effort between community, social services, and law enforcement to address violence in our city. Each organization brings unique strengths to this initiative. Emerge Community Development specializes in violence interruption, using trauma-informed, culturally related approaches. W. Berry Consulting offers extensive experience in mentoring and emotional regulation through their holistic personal development program. Urban Youth Conservation has proven successfully implementing the GVI model since its inception. These contracts will enable coordinated efforts to engage directly with individuals involved in group violence, create accountability within groups, provide clear pathways away from violence, and deliver trauma-informed interventions and support. These one-year contracts will begin April 1st, 2025, with the option to extend for 2 additional years based off of performance. By authorizing the city to enter into these contracts, you're investing in proven strategies to reduce violence and create lasting positive change in our communities. For the Y-GVI RFP, this is the punchline. For the Y-GVI RFP, we are asking for $117,647 for Emerge, $138,408 for Sabathani Community Center, and $73,356 for the Man Up Club. For the GVI RFP, we're asking for $55,363 for Emerge, $207,612 for W. Berry Consulting, and $207,612 for Urban Youth Conservation. Our goal is to have no disruption of services between when the current contracts end and the new contracts begin. RCAs were filled out and submitted to the procurement, and submitted by procurement to City Council to authorize these funds going to those who were selected in the RFP process. Once we get authorized from the City Council, we will negotiate the terms of the contract with the selected responders with the goal to have new contracts begin April 1st, 2025. This will allow us to make sure we do not have a gap in service between our current contracts and the new ones. As you can see from this presentation, Neighborhood Safety has thoroughly revamped our RFP process with the help of the violence prevention expert organizations, procurement, CAO, to ensure that responders selected are the most qualified for the job. NSD does not automatically approve current vendors for new contracts, but instead asks all responders to go through the same fair and equitable evaluation process as outlined in the RFP. Each department in the City of Minneapolis goes through a new every time a department in the City of Minneapolis goes through a new RFP process, there is a potential that the new vendors selected are not the same as the current vendors. While this has the potential to partially disrupt continuity of services, holistically speaking, the responders chosen by any new RFP process are ideally the responders who are best positioned to complete the contract requirements. This process avoids favoritism by sticking to public accessible selection criteria. Organizations typically maintain multiple streams of funding precisely for situations like this, where budget cuts, contract changes, or competitive RFP processes might affect their funding. This diversification helps ensure continuity of services regardless of individual contract outcomes. If there are responders who are currently funded who do not get selected for new contracts, NSD is willing to work with those impacted to develop a comprehensive transition plan, which includes connecting youth with new mentors and services where appropriate or desired. Additionally, we must uphold our responsibility to Minneapolis residents by ensuring that city-funded services are provided to the most qualified responders. Lastly, as part of the improvements we're making to the new GVI and Y-GVI contracts, we're also significantly improving our vendor referral process, which will enhance our accountability and service tracking of those receiving GVI and Y-GVI services. We've developed a more robust referral system using Smartsheet software, created in collaboration with an MPD community navigator and OCS data analyst. This new system will provide a comprehensive tracking of all of our individuals served by vendor participants. Key aspects to this improved referral process include training for all vendors before contract is initiated, contract embedded requirements for using the referral system, enhanced accountability measures through systematic tracking, and improved data collection and analytic capabilities. These improvements will ensure better oversight of our programs, improve our ability to estimate future funding needs, and enable us to more effectively measure impact. That concludes the presentation. I'm happy to stand for questions.
All right, colleagues, we have 6 people on queue. We have not found a captioner that can stay past 4 p.m.
Mr. Chair, I know I just messaged you, but I just got an email. We have secured captioning until 4:30.
Perfect. Okay, cool. So we have time to stay till 4:30. I know that some colleagues have to leave at 4 p.m. Can I confirm that we will have quorum? Yes? 2 people.
I have to leave for childcare.
Okay, so there's 2 people that have to leave. That still is quorum. So I am going to continue with the meeting because we just confirmed captioners to stay till 4:30 p.m. Okay, I'll start off with the first person on queue, Councilmember Cashman.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. Thank you, Deputy Director Lakes, for the thorough presentation. One bit of just clerk follow-up, first of all, is can we make sure this presentation is on LIMS as soon as possible?
Mr. Chair, Councilmember Cashman, we haven't yet received the slides, so as soon as we get them, we will add them to LIMS.
Chair Chavez, Councilmember Cashman, I apologize for that. I thought that they were sent. I will send them, absolutely.
Great. Okay, thanks. That was my first question. And then second question, I think, is just hopefully a basic question, is Emerge is being proposed to contract with both. This is the same group. Can you differentiate between what just with Emerge specifically, how will they be dividing their services between GVI and Y-GVI? Is that according to age of their client? And if so, what would be the age?
Chair Chavez, Councilmember Cashman, good question. It will be dependent on the referral criteria outlined in the contract. So it'll probably be by age. It has historically been by aged. And groups like Emerge have multiple programs. So it'll depend on the needs of that client, what programs will get assigned according to the situation.
Okay, thanks. So I guess my main concern here, and I really appreciate you talking about the data points that you'll be collecting throughout these contracts, number of individuals identified, number of individuals invited to custom notification, those percent of those participating, the percentage of those enrolling, number of individuals who said that this helped them, number of individuals who were involved in serious violence as victims or perpetrators. I assume that's one where we want the numbers to be low, whereas the others we want the numbers to be high. But that you have not finalized reporting protocols and success criteria at this time. And so I'm wondering who is our technical assistance provider that will help us match success criteria for these contracts with our Safe and Thriving Communities report to ensure that we are achieving safety outcomes in these proposals?
Chair Chavez, Councilmember Cashman, that is an excellent question. We are pulling from safe and thriving communities when we're writing the contract. So a lot of the language that's in there right now that we're negotiating is pulled from those sources. So we do use that language when we wrote the RFP, and we also consulted with NNSC when we're talking about what the reporting requirements are. The only reason I want to not commit to them in stone is we haven't signed those contracts. So we do have a good start where all of that information has been compiled from those sources and has been advised by NNSC, as well as us going through the Safe and Thriving Communities report and pulling out information that would be helpful for reports back on that.
Can you please redefine NNSC?
Thank you. The National Network of Safe Communities.
Okay, thank you. And then reporting protocols and criteria. How are you thinking about reporting? Is that like midway through the contracts, at the end of the contracts? Would that be to the Public Health and Safety Committee? Would it be to some other leadership body at the city? How are you thinking about reporting?
Chair Chavez, Councilmember Cashman, it will depend on what the needs are and what information is helpful for making decisions in other areas. All of the information can be put in some sort of dashboard or made available, but we also want to be sensitive to things like personal identification. If there's only like one person of a certain demographic in one geographic area, we want to be sensitive to make sure those are de-identified. So it'll depend on the needs that exist, the data we collect, and things like privacy that we want to make sure we're protecting.
Yeah, I think I don't need to see the names of the customer, clients that we're serving, but I do think that the numbers of the data points that you identified are really important for us to know so that we can see what's the baseline, how are we moving forward from there, how are we achieving our safety outcomes with regards to these goals. So I just think that, to the extent possible by Thursday when we're really approving these contracts, that you can provide a reporting schedule, whether it's 3 months in, 6 months in, to the council. Director Amanda Harrington does a really good job of sending out a lot of communications to the council. Can we receive that type of information from, the program manager once they're hired to oversee this? That feels really important for me to get to a place of supporting these contracts today so that we can see these numbers and these outcomes actually being advanced. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Next up, we have Council President Payne.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. Thank you for being here. And thank you, Councilmember Cashman. You asked a series of questions that were aligned with some of my thinking. Maybe I need to back up a little bit and just have some clarification on procedurally what's supposed to be happening next, because I see us approving contracts in front of us right now as the action that's being asked of this body, but I'm also hearing that the details about reporting will be negotiated upon final signature. This is our only touch point on that process. And so before I'm comfortable moving forward, giving that final authority from this body, I'd like more reassurances on not hypothetical data points, but what are the data points that we will actually be holding the vendors accountable to be able to engage in this contract. And if we don't have that information yet because it needs to be negotiated, are we premature on this council action?
Chair Chavez, Councilmember Payne, we need to know how much money we can negotiate to have negotiations. So this step right here is important to get to the point where we can have those negotiations. We can't negotiate with no money. So in order for us to sign a piece of paper and come to an agreement, we need the money to do that first. And I will pause and see if I should be corrected in that statement by
This
anyone.
may be a question for the city attorney, Mr. Attorney, if you may. The money's been allocated to the department for you to engage in these conversations. My understanding is that this action is to approve a contract, not to allocate a budget.
Chair Chavez, Councilmember Payne, we're, I think, asking you for authorization to sign these contracts.
So I guess, maybe Commissioner Barnett, could you maybe clarify this question? The action that is before us today, my understanding is to approve contracts, not to allocate budget for the purposes of negotiating contracts. Is there a miscommunication that's happening right now?
Chair Chavez, I always get confused of whether saying, well, say Council President Payne. My understanding is that the money's been allocated. There's not a line item for NSD when it comes to the budget, in this part of the budget. The money's there. I think what Deputy Director Lakes is trying to say is that as part of the negotiation that they have, you have the ceiling for the amount of money and the details that they're working on. And so I don't know, and maybe our city attorney can chime in. I'm not immensely involved with the the contract negotiation, but I know once this body approves the contract, it gives us authority to sign it. So I'm not sure at what point they are in the contract process. Are they still working on the details?
And we can also recognize the city attorneys.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair Chavez and Council President Payne. So the way I understand what the actions are here are to authorize specific contracts. I think it's 6 specific contracts, 3 GVI, 3 Y-GVI at set amounts. I don't know factually where the negotiation process is here. What I'll say generally speaking is negotiation can happen both before and after this point. Typically, to get to this point, before you would ask the council to authorize a contract, you would at least want to do enough negotiations to know that you're going to be able to have a meeting of the minds, that if there's some question about the service that's going to be provided, that's answered before asking the council for approval. It's not unusual, as my understanding, for some negotiations to occur after authorization, though there's nothing that would prohibit the council from asking, for the contracts to be further along before approval. I think that's within the council's discretion here about whether it feels it has enough information.
I don't believe we have enough information to move forward with approval. I'd like some concrete understanding of what are the performance metrics that we're going to be holding these vendors accountable to before we make any commitment. I mean, if this RCA is limited in scope into authorizing negotiation, that's one thing. But my understanding is this is one and done. You get this approval or you don't get this approval. I don't think there's a requirement to come back to this body to find, once the negotiation is completed and the scope and the accountability measures are in place, they're coming, my understanding is that's not coming back to us. This is that final approval.
Right, you're giving us the authority to sign.
Right.
That's true.
So
Yes.
I would suggest you finalize the negotiation and we come back with some concrete understanding of what those performance metrics are that we're holding our vendors accountable to. Using these numbers as your guide to say, if it comes in within this and we've got some performance metrics that we feel confident in, that's going to be easy, I hope an easy yes for us. But I think the challenge we've been in this entire time is we don't have a clear understanding of what are we holding the vendors accountable to deliver on the outcomes for safety in our community. And I don't see that specified in the RCA. I don't see that specified anywhere. The presentation was extremely helpful, at least to understand the methodology about how we're arriving here. But I would like to see, and this is the language of the contract, these are the number of individuals that we are going to be, working with. We want to see this percentage of, people elected into this program. And do we have anything in the contract negotiation around if they don't achieve those metrics, that there are either bonuses or consequences for meeting or not meeting metrics? I mean, I'd like to see all of those parameters before we take a council action.
Okay.
Council Member Osman.
Thank you so much. Thank you, staff, for that really good information that you have provided. My question is, maybe I missed, maybe you answered this, is that are any of these organizations returning organizations? If so, which are not returning organizations, which are new?
Excellent question. Chair Chavez, Councilmember Osman, the returning, I might have to ask for assistance with this one. The returning ones are W. Berry, and then I'll let my AD of Compliance answer this one.
Hello, council members. So the returning organizations are W. Berry Consulting and Urban Youth Conservation for GVI, and then all the other vendors are new.
All right, thank you so much. And I'm looking at here, Emerge. I thought that Emerge, the work they do, basically it's employment and workforce. How are they related to a gun violence and on the street? Awesome.
Chair Chavez, Councilmember Osman, I'm pulling up the specifics on Emerge. Would you like me to read it out loud?
Yes, or is have they done any work that's related to gun violence, I guess?
Since the founding of 2007, Emerge has worked with communities heavily impacted by violence, particularly those involved in group activity. They specialize in violence interruption and prevention, using trauma-informed, culturally relevant approaches to engage high-risk individuals, Emerge youth and adult programs incorporating key Y-GVI elements, such as direct outreach to individuals in violent groups, creating accountability, and providing pathways out of violence. Their reentry services focus on supporting individuals with violent criminal backgrounds, offering wraparound services, career training, and mentorship. Emerge's programs are designed to help individuals build stability, make lasting changes, and reinstate successfully in their communities.
All right. Well, thank you. I mean, I was looking at their website and I didn't see really specific programs that target what they are applying for. Mainly it's career training, education, employment, counseling, and something similar to that. So when I think about Y-GVI or GVI, I'm thinking about gun violence and groups like that.
Chair Chavez, Councilmember Osman. So that is a valid question, and that is something that we were able to get information on during a process called the request for information. So once we go through the normal evaluation process, and I'll try not to provide too much information that could cause issues with the procurement process. So the request for information is an opportunity for the department to ask additional questions from potential responders, and we typically engage in this during the negotiation process. So for this particular RFP, we work closely with NNSC to be a part of that process. They were kind enough to volunteer a staff member that was a part of an interview with the top scoring vendors for the RFPs. And so we were able to ask questions to dive into the specifics of their qualifications outside of what was provided in the proposal, and to have an understanding of what key staff will be involved in the process, to have an understanding of their credibility, and just to give the NNSC staff an opportunity to understand overall the organization, because at a glance I can understand why their services are specific to what they've provided in the past. However, based on those conversations, we were able to align their services with the GVI model. And I'm happy to also provide the information from that negotiation in the supplemental memo, if we were allowed to. I'll have to connect with the procurement department or the city's attorney's office to do so.
Sure, thank you for explaining. It will be super helpful to ask extra questions and get more information about how helpful they will be on this program that is new to them. I know I told folks that I'll be leaving 4 o'clock. I will be leaving 4 o'clock, and I want to let the public know that I will abstain this vote. And the reason I will abstain this vote is, first of all, staff did a phenomenal job. It has nothing to do with the work you're doing is amazing. Is that a few weeks ago, we had an individual that was standing right there threatening us, calling us names, and I'm not even sure if he's involved in these organizations. And there are wonderful organizations, I'm not really pointing out anything, that do a wonderful job for the city of Minneapolis that we continue to contract. And that is just, I want to thank their services. But on the administration leadership, or even here in diocese, we were told that we were picking and choosing which organizations that we contract, or somehow we are, selecting organizations that we have conversations or we are close to it. Well, I don't know nothing about these organizations, and voting on it, I don't want to be labeled to that I'm picking and choosing an organization. That's what it comes down to. And I will be abstaining because that's the right thing for me to take. And so, yeah, I'll let the public know that that's what I decided to do. And that's it for my comment, Chair Chavez. Thank you so much.
Councilmember Wansley.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. I'll share some comments because I also have to head out, but I'm also going to be abstaining on items 7 and 8 should these items proceed to full council. For nearly 2 years, I've shared my concerns about the persistent mismanagement within the Neighborhood Safety Department. I've shared these concerns with my colleagues, with the mayor, and with the public. And while there may be positive developments in the Neighborhood Safety Department's procurement practices that Deputy Director, you extensively outlined in your presentation today, and in other previous presentations we've received in AO, selecting a vendor is just one step of the process. The Neighborhood Safety Department has not demonstrated significant improvement in their ability to manage these programs on an ongoing basis. The department currently has 50% vacancies, and many of the leading staff are very new. And most crucially, there is nobody in the role of program manager who will actually help implement and manage the GVI and Y-GVI programs we are being asked to vote on today. Also, the Neighborhood Safety Department has not been able to produce any data or on the outcomes of the Y-GVI and GVI programs for over 2 years, and I have serious reservations in supporting these contracts when we also have no information about even last year's outcomes. Also, Neighborhood Safety Department leadership has not been able to answer basic questions around the methodology behind the GVI programs, leaving many council members to have to go and work and bring in national providers to get answers directly ourselves. And we are essentially then asking these new vendors to be patient and weather the storm while the Office of Community Safety and the Neighborhood Safety Department figure out how to implement these programs successfully. And for me, that does feel like we're essentially setting them up to ultimately fail. And while there continues to be large holes in the basic operational capacity of the Neighborhood Safety Department, there's also new concerns that continue to be added. Just last week, the Star Tribune reported that a former partner of the former director of the department received a contract for implementing a human dignity model of violence prevention, which is not a real thing, and also was compensated for over $800 per hour. And this specific example demonstrates that when there is a lack of expertise within the department and they refuse to use national best standards, the results are poor outcomes and then wasteful spending. So all this to say, I do not have confidence in any element of the Neighborhood Safety Department at this current time, and I do not feel approving contracts
I don't feel comfortable approving them under these current conditions. And I just want to name very clearly, my concerns are not about specific vendors, and I want my abstention to be seen as a vote of no confidence, particularly in the management of Neighborhood Safety Department. And I'm going to continue abstaining on these contracts until there is credible evidence and data affirming that the department is actually mitigating risk, producing credible outcomes, and operating in line with best and evidence-based practices, and has more full established staffing so that we are setting these programs up for success. I'm going to continue supporting and championing these violence prevention programs, the staffing positions that you named in terms of business analysts and compliance. Those are things that Councilmember Chavez and I added to the department. And we've constantly worked for the past 2 years with staff in NSD and leadership of OCS to try to figure out how to support this department to be successful. And yet, time and time again, we're not seeing, and our residents are not seeing the outcomes that ultimately will keep them safe. So I will be, again, naming the abstention in case the body has the will to proceed these contracts forward.
Council Vice President Chuck Tai.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm wondering, Deputy Director Lakes, the amounts that are listed with each of these contracts are incredibly specific. Now, are these amounts negotiated, or has that not happened yet either?
Chair Chavez, Councilmember Chugtai, this number is a cap. That's how much we can go up to. And the amount of money awarded was based off of how much we had budgeted, awarded, available, and also the number of participants that the vendors said that they could handle in the RFP. So they said we can have X amount of participants, that's how many people we can serve, and then we said based off of how much money we have and how many participants you can serve, this is what the cap would be. So that number could change, but it can't go over. And let me look to my AD of compliance and make sure that that is accurate.
I'm just concerned because the action before us reads authorizing a contract with organization name in the amount of dollar amount. And it doesn't say up to, so like what is our way of making sure that a finalized contract isn't significantly below these caps? And so, we believe on our end that we've invested $800,000 in GVI and Y-GVI, but then the final product is, let's say, $100,000, $200,000 less than that. That sets up for underinvesting in a thing that we're approving.
Chair Chavez, Councilmember Chugtai, that is, let's pretend no one needs any violence interruption. Let's pretend we live in a fantasy world where no one needs any services to be provided. Then we would maybe not spend as much money as we anticipated. So the way, I don't have a good answer, I might have to look to the attorney to how we can guarantee that investment is, but we are building in that cap to say we can't go over that amount.
Sure.
Things can happen in the environment where we would go under, but I'll let my AD of compliance speak a little bit more to that.
Yep. Chair Chavez, Councilmember Chugtai. I think putting it plainly this way, so that's the amount that we're requesting. When we negotiate the budget table, they will provide itemized line items up to that amount. And so to be very detailed within the budget table, there's multiple categories that the funding will be allocated to, but there's a possibility that they might not max out that category based on the number of participants and the type of services.
That makes sense. So then just switching gears a little bit, there are, of the five vendors listed here, because Emerge is selected both for one contract pertaining to GVI and one with Y-GVI. So of the five vendors selected here, two are returning. So there's four vendors that had a contract for these services from 2023 to now, or to the end of next month, that won't continue to provide such services. Can you just help us understand what the plan is for, just making sure that casework isn't lost, and what's the transition plan there? Or is that something that's still being negotiated, perhaps?
That's a good question. Chair Chavez, Councilmember Chugtai. The transition in speaking with several of our partners who also do Y-GVI work, we have talked about having transition plans where desired to be outlined based on those who want to transition to the new vendors. So we are very happy to make those transition plans happen as desired by those who are being mentored in those programs.
Great, thank you. Okay, so, just understanding from the discussion that has unfolded so far, that there are still like incredibly significant aspects, particularly those that are important to the body that are still to be negotiated. I would support the postponement of these items until that point is reached, and just also want to say pretty clearly, I don't really have any issues with any of the amounts that are listed here. I've been looking forward to learning what these amounts would end up being, but don't feel comfortable or ready to approve these contracts until those important pieces are determined and can be a part of the discussion and consideration.
I'd second that.
Chair Chavez, Council Member Chugtai, I will say we aren't anticipating any changes to what we're requiring them to report, and we can get you the information that we currently, is that accurate? Can we get them the information we're currently requiring in the contract?
It's business need?
Would you consider this a business need?
Chair Chavez. Thank you. So, under the Minnesota Government Data Practices Act, this information is not public, but it can be provided to council members if there's a legitimate business need. So if the council believes it needs this information in order to make a decision, it can be provided to them, but that information remains not public, so it can't be posted on limbs or anything like that.
Chair Chavez, council members, my big concern is that we are able to start the contracts April 1st. So I want to make sure that you have the information you need to feel comfortable and confident, and I also want to make sure we're not delaying the process. And I'm wondering if there's a recommendation, because we can provide that information to you, but until it's signed, it's not going to be in stone.
Right, but I think there aren't documents that are ready to be signed today. Like, they still have to be approved. I think we all share the sentiment that no one wants to see a delay in services. No disagreement there at all whatsoever. But you don't have a finalized product right now, happy to postpone this item a cycle. Maybe over the next 2 weeks, we will have a finalized product that can still be signed prior to the expiration of existing contracts. But one way or another, there are still aspects of finalizing these contracts that has to be done. I think what we're saying, or what I'm saying, I can speak for myself here, is I want to see that finalized product when we approve these contracts. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have any further questions. Sorry. Did you want to address any of these pieces?
No, if you didn't have any. Chair Chavez, Councilmember Chugtai, I just wanted to add that we do have some time to complete negotiations, and it's not uncommon within the city for staff members to come before council to request to enter into contracts prior to the contract being fully executed. But we are willing to work with you to provide the information that we do have. The reporting requirements will take some time to refresh, because we always have a starting point with what was in the previous contracts, working with different stakeholders to ensure that the information is transferable to the current contracts. And so we do have a list of outcomes that we can provide. I think what Deputy Director Lakes is saying, that while we provide that information, it could change based on whether we consult with NNSC, PMI, or any other relevant parties to finalize those reporting outcomes. But the bones of it, we're able to provide that. There's just a possibility that what we provide could deviate once the contracts are fully executed.
Totally. I think what I'm saying is what I'm hearing you say pretty clearly, and you've been consistent about this throughout the presentation and throughout discussion today, is those types of metrics and requirements will be a part of a finalized contract. That will be executed by the end of March in order to prevent any type of delay or discontinuation of service. So if we are on the same page that both of those things are that is going to happen before the end of March, then I'm saying I want to wait to have that process done before we approve and authorize these contracts.
Okay, understood.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Next up, Councilmember Jenkins.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. I guess I'm a little confused. It seems to me just 2 weeks ago we were willing to hand this whole process over to Hennepin County without any awareness of what was going to happen. However, that being said, I'm just trying to understand, have we changed our policies? Because there's only 2 contracts that exceed $175,000. So I'm not sure why these contracts are before us today. Can somebody help me? Have we changed our policies? Are we considering changing our policies?
If our city attorneys can please help answer the question that Councilmember Jenkins is inquiring about.
Thank you, Committee Chair Chavez and Councilmember Jenkins. I'm not positive, but my understanding is that if the total value of the procurement exceeds $175,000, even if there's more than one contract, it comes before the council for approval.
Thank you.
Councilmember Palmisano.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Deputy Director Lakes, I've heard you and your team present here and be here for questions 3 times now, and I appreciate your unwavering, unequivocating, and very specific demeanor in presenting all of this information, and the support of others here that have assisted. And you've basically taken away any questions I had with your earlier presentations. I know you're excited to showcase all of the changes that you've made here and will make into the future, and I'm really glad that the resolution to move this to the county got pulled. I might suggest we move forward with these contracts for now without recommendation so as not to interrupt the delivery of GVI and Y-GVI services. Reminder, this has been delayed by this council and delayed yet again. From my perspective, we have to move forward now, one way or other. The Neighborhood Safety Department, and specifically you and your team, have been available, and you have explained this process to us very specifically 3 times. Like Councilmember Jenkins just said, it's fascinating to me that my colleagues are willing to hand over $1 million over to the county, and you would have had no say in any performance metrics had you handed this over to the county. You would have had no say in these performance metrics and this level of detail and specificity that you're demanding from city staff here today.
Councilmember Vita.
Thank you, Chair. I agree. This was being handed over to the county, and I don't know if people were having conversations or meeting going through this level of specificity, but that was one of the reasons why I voted no on moving it to the county, was because I wanted to make sure that the city was overseeing this work and being able to provide oversight on the direct services. I'm also, on the other hand, excited that my colleagues finally want some data, that they do want to know what's going on, because for 3 years, I've been asking for audits and I've been asking for the specifics, and I just don't feel like there's been support on this council for some of these groups to just show us exactly what they're doing. And there's been money that's been poured into it, more and more groups. But I'll end with this. It seems like now that the department is making some really good positive changes, that might be a little scary for people. It seems the more changes you're making on a positive note and the more success happening in this department, the more my colleagues are pulling back from it. So I want to encourage you all to keep going. If these contracts don't pass, or if we play this game for the next month or two or whatever, we're only playing with the people of Minneapolis, because GVI and Y-GVI services are very different than Minneapolis violence intervention services. This is not the same thing. And I think there's been a lot of confusion on this council what these programs are. This is not the same thing. Very different. These are targeted individuals with history who are fighting through the system. That's why a group like Emerge is here, because Emerge has a re-entry program and they work on housing and stability. That's how you end gang and gun violence, is by getting people into stable housing, helping them find jobs, helping them live productive lives. That's why they're here. If there's ever a question about the groups that are on here, I advise colleagues to reach out to any of them, previous ones and current ones, and see the work that they're doing. This is not the same programming. And I'm sorry that that keeps getting lost. These are not the groups that are standing on West Broadway, that are standing on Lowry. These are professionals that have had years and years of training to work with a population of people on very specific things in private. This is the information about these groups of people, the people who they work with. This is extremely private information that we keep having these chaotic public conversations about. This is real. This is not about the person that may need a crisis response on the corner. These are identified gang members that nobody should be talking about personal information about, and putting, not only are we putting people at risk, but we're putting the folks who lead these groups at risk. These people are taking a chance for pennies. Look at these dollar amounts. I mean, we've passed contracts for millions and millions of dollars, and then we get a couple of groups before us for $50,000 and $75,000 and $73,000, and we want a level of metrics and all the things, when we know that these are people that are given to these groups. They are not on the street looking for participants in this program, in GVI nor Y-GVI. These are people who have been identified and they need these services, and it is critical that we do not have a lapse in services here. It is extremely critical that we don't do this. And it is extremely critical that if we want to change the process with Minneapolis, start doing it now. Don't wait till the contracts get before this council and start picking it apart when we know there's an RFP process and there's other things to do with different contracts. I'm sorry to staff that you keep being brought up here and asked the same questions over and over again about what we all know on this council. Asking you the same question 20 times, 20 different ways is not going to change. We have problems in our city that need to be addressed. We've been tasked at a city with dealing with them, and the way to deal with them is to answer questions and to hold groups accountable. But there's also, it's reasonable to have apprehension about things, but what's not reasonable is to put people and services at risk because of own personal issues or because games being played. Thank you again, staff.
All right, next up we have Vice Chair Chowdhury.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. Thank you so much, Ms. Lakes, for your presentation. It was really, really thorough and helpful. And I just want to start off by saying I'm really glad that you're a part of Neighborhood Safety Department alongside Shanique. I've had an opportunity to meet with the both of you, have appreciated your work, and I think you're coming into a lot, right? There's a history that's before you, and now you're a part of the work that we're all in together. So just wanted to acknowledge, like, you've jumped right in and appreciated the connectivity that you've had with my office. I have a couple of different questions. I think I kind of want to just frame up, like, for me, it's important that we have a public discussion about these contracts, not only to understand the RFP process, which I think very, very thorough, like on the front end, but also to understand twofold, not only like performance metrics for the Y-GVI and GVI contractors that we're going to work with potentially, depending on this vote, but also the issues around financial documentation, accounting, receipts, because those were issues in the past. And I think for me, I'll speak for myself, I think I am hearing from my own community and then also residents outside of the 12th Ward that are really, really concerned about the level of transparency and accountability when it comes to Y-GVI and GVI contractors. And they want to see the work get done, the very valuable work get done. And I had an opportunity to do a ride-along with Lieutenant O'Rourke, who does the curfew work. So I got to see a lot of that in person. Like, we want the outcomes, but we want to see the accountability. And I think for me, the Coppola lawsuit that then went to a settlement agreement with the city is an indicator that, okay, like the public sees that there's like a higher level of expectation around accountability and transparency. And that's what I want to advocate for, and that's what I want to get comfortable with when it comes to these particular set of contracts. I think we owe that to the people of Minneapolis. And the first question that I have is, I know that some of the contractors are trained in the group violence interruption model, and some may not be, and I just wanted to ask if some are already trained in or some will need to get the training in the national model.
Chair Chavez, Councilmember Chowdhury, for the RFP, all vendors had to meet the minimum requirements to have experience with working with at-risk individuals. And so as for training, we are in communication with the National Network of Safe Communities to plot out a timeline for training. And so we're still in conversations with that. I don't have any dates as yet, but we are working to see what the best plan is forward. So we're in close communication with them. And they're the technical assistance provider.
Thank you. And that's something that's particularly important to me. I know with all the contracts over at Hennepin County, they were trained in the national model, which is a part of implementing the work that we're in partnership with the National Network for Safe Communities. I believe as of now, it's Emerge and Sabathani Community Center that need to get the training in the group violence national model. And I guess like this can be a question for administrative follow-up. It's like, how long does it typically take for an organization to be trained up in the model? Because I think that's also a part of service delivery and continuity. And if an organization isn't trained up in this model, it kind of brings to the question, okay, like, are we gonna see the continuity that we're expecting when it comes to this national work? And I don't know if you know how long it typically takes to get trained in or have an organization trained in.
Chair Chavez, Councilmember Chowdhury, I don't know the answer to that, but we just went, I think 3 or 4 weeks ago, the National Network for Safe Communities was in town, gave us a training on this. A lot of our partners were present, our vendors were present. One of the things that might be helpful to answer this question is I believe they have a weekly call the national network does for vendors. In fact, one of the presenters was getting on one of our vendors for not being there recently. So they work together, and the technical assistants will be there. They will get help from the national network. They're committed to doing that.
I appreciate the commitment.
Yep.
I think that's a part of, like, for me, in supporting these contracts, to have just like a time estimate on how long it takes to get our contractors that we're going to give taxpayer dollars to get this really important training. I'm not going to ask more questions than just my last one, so we can wrap up here. And I know Chair Chavez is also on cue, and I'll follow up with you all. There is a requirement for 2-hour mandatory accountability training or accounting training following the settlement agreement. How are we planning on implementing that with these contractors, and how are we going to do it, like, with some continuity and consistency?
Chair Chavez, Vice Chair Chowdhury, I'm glad you asked that because we just had that. 2 hours of training for our Y-GVI, GVI vendors. Both the new and the current vendors were invited to that training, and it is recorded, and it has that information available that I can send, because it also does a very good job of outlining all of those requirements fiscally for the accounting, as well as having the ability for the NSD staff to have those relationships with the vendors so they can go to them and ask those specific questions.
Gotcha. So they got the training prior to the agreement on the contract?
Chair Chavez, Vice Chair Chowdhury, that is correct, yes, for the Y-GVI. We've broken it up by group, we've broken it up by program, so not all of our vendors have gotten the training, but that specific group has gotten the training.
Okay, but not the GVI group?
Yes, the GVI group. So maybe not.
I heard you say Y-GVI, so that's why I said GVI.
I apologize.
Yeah.
Combined them, yes.
Okay.
GVI and Y-GVI were a part of the same
All
group
right.
training.
Thank you so much. I'll plan on following up.
And on the last on cue, I'll make a motion. I just want to level set a little bit. I think the questions that we as council are making are fair ones. I think there has been mismanagement that we have all seen, and I think that you two are working really hard to give us this presentation on addressing some of the concerns that we have. So I want to make sure that you, as staff members, know that we see the work that you are doing in trying to address issues, systemic issues that we have seen since being on the council, and I didn't want to at least acknowledge that part. I think the motion I'm about to make right now is moving forward without recommendation. However, I am going to make an ask of staff to please provide the information that Council President Payne asked, folks on this body asked, way ahead of Thursday's City Council meeting. And if members do not find that information adequate, I will be more than happy to make a motion at full council to delay a cycle. So that is publicly, I'm telling everybody the plan of action for this item. Cool. All right. All those in favor say aye on the motion to move forward without recommendation.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? All right, thank you so much. All right, colleagues, we are not going to read these reports of committees. Please read these reports ahead of full council meeting. And with that, we've concluded all business to come before the committee today, and hearing no objection, I will declare this meeting adjourned.
Boulevard.